The first rule in grip sport is you tell everyone about grip sport.
Crushing, pinch grip, thick bar, wrists.
If the best guy in the world can't lift 100 pounds on it, I don't give a shit about it.
Well, I went in there, refitted the room, did what I could for him. And before I left, name of the man was Jeep, of all things. But Jeep said, "Aren't you going to take all this trash with you?" And I kind of looked at him because it was a long series of hallways and stairs to get in and out of the building. Mm-hmm. And I really didn't like the idea of toting all those dumbbells out. I really didn't. But I said I would do it, and that was my job. And I went ahead and one by one carried them out. And being frugal back in the day, I didn't want to throw them away. I knew there was something there, but I didn't know what I was going to do with them. Actually, there's one in the Congaree River that I used as a boat anchor. So they laid around in the little shop I had, and I was tired of stumbling over them. And finally, I said, I'm going to get rid of these things. And I started picking them up one by one and moving them across the room to a better spot. And I went to grab the last one, and I couldn't lift it up. And I said, well, what's this? And I tried and tried, and I couldn't lift it up. And it kind of got me thinking. I said, this might be a pretty good task if I can't do it, because I had a fair grip. And I started working with it, and I probably tried, I would say 200 times individual attempts before I ever got to lift that. So from a piece of trash that was at the YMCA and a boat anchor, it came into being as the Blob. Okay. It was just a blob of metal.
With me now, I have Jedd Johnson or Napalm, whichever version's showing up. We'll see. But Jedd, I've kind of mentioned this. I don't know if I did it on any of the previous stuff, for interviews and things, but I mean, Richard Sorin pretty much like coined the term the Blob for the original one and everything. And then after Richard, in my opinion, I feel like you're kind of the next person in line that sort of, I'm not saying there weren't other people lifting blobs and doing stuff like that, but as far as putting out information about them, the different generations, continuing to train with them and almost kind of keep blobs in the spotlight at times. Mm-hmm. I feel like you're kind of like the next person in line,
Thanks. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I don't know how you feel about that, but I mean, that's kind of how I would picture it, because I don't really know of anybody else that's filmed as many videos or was doing those type of lifts that you were doing with the Blob back then. I mean, there was other people training it, but I feel like you just had a bigger output and way more information that was always put out. Seemed like it was a bigger part of your training, or you enjoyed blobs more than other people. So,
yeah.
So I kind of put you almost like, okay, well, Richard's like the originator. And then I almost put you as like second in line for that. Like, as far as like, obviously top feats and everything else, but with the history. So I guess one thing is if you wanted to real quick, we could maybe just bring up maybe like the difference in generations if you wanted to, just for fun.
So first off, anytime I get to be mentioned in the same breath as Richard Sorin's an honor for me. Richard is the one that challenged himself to lift a blob the first. And so the one that he lifted was out of the original shape, the original size of York dumbbells, and at least the pill shaped ones. So at the time when I found out about grip, it was 2003, and York was still selling blobs. So I was under the impression that the blobs, the dumbbells that were being cut into blobs at the time, were the ones that Richard lifted. As it turns out, he shared sometime down the line, maybe it might have been 04, 05, that there were actually different types of York dumbbells. So the original style, which he called the Fat Man Blob, was wider than what they were selling at the time. So the profile of the then current type of York blob was thinner, and it was thus easier to lift. And eventually, Richard even went into more detail, saying that there was a period where York went from their original Fat Man style blob to a blue colored blob, and this has since been called the blue blob. Now, what happened was because nobody knew about the blue blob, we were assuming that the 2004 model of blob, which I went right to York and bought at least 100-pound dumbbell to make blobs. We many of us were under the misconception that that current day blob was the second generation blob. So that name for that blob has stuck with some people who may not have seen all the videos, all the articles, and stuff like that. So really, the original would be the first generation blob. The blue blob would be what was the second generation that didn't last very long, and then the third generation is what we now call the next generation or next gen blob. So I'm not the one that named any of these. This was all through group discussion on the grip board, and I'm sure someone who had the time could go back and find some of those early threads from 03, 04, 05 where this stuff was being talked about. Um, my so there's a commercial, not a commercial. There's an advertisement rather of a Hulk Hogan workout set where he's got what looks like a York dumbbell in his hand. He's performing a curl, and it's a very clear blue colored York shaped dumbbell. However, the blue blobs that we find these days are they don't have the same color. So I don't know what might have happened with the paint quality or how it ages. But like the blue blob that I have, I'm pretty sure someone sent that to me as a gift. It actually has like a greenish hue to it. If you set the original Fat Man up against the blue blob and then the next gen, you'll see that there are very clear differences in the shape, the contours, the profiles of the three blobs. And I'm sure if you went and measured the handle size of all of these blobs, you're going to see there's a difference. But from what I remember, part of the reasons for the changes were to make the blob, or sorry, to make the York dumbbells look a little bit more marketable. They went to the blue color. And to make them a little bit more resilient, they thickened the handle. So the original Fat Man blobs will have a smaller handle than, say, the next gen blobs. And I still have uncut hundreds from the original style and the next gen, and you can see that that is completely true, that the handles are different sizes. So there's some information on the differences between them. The other clear-cut difference that is often referenced is whether there's a stamp on the bottom of one of the heads. So on the next gen blob, one of the heads has USA on the bottom, and then the original styles don't have any stamps on any of the heads. And honestly, I'm not sure at this point right now what existence of stamps might be on the blue blobs. It escapes me. But
Yeah,
those are some
I don't
big
know.
difference.
Yeah, I don't know that like I said, I've never really seen one, maybe one of them, but like at least what I thought was a blue blob. Yeah, I don't know. But I don't remember seeing any stamping. But yeah,
Yeah.
for anybody that's listening in, for that next generation or next gen blob, um, the USA stamp will still only be on the York side. It's never going to be on the number side. So if anybody checks their number side to try to validate what generation it is, you're not going to have a stamp on that regardless.
Yeah, and like that's something that got even cloudy in my memory as far back as 2017 because when I went to uh Dubai with Better, he was claiming his Fat Man, well, his 100 half 100 York was a Fat Man, and even in a certain video, I was like rolling it over and there was no stamp, and it totally escaped me that there was no stamp on the 100 side. So I honestly
Yeah.
don't know if that was a Fat Man or not. I would, Better's pretty knowledgeable about this stuff, so I'm assuming he got it right. But Anytime you see someone verifying a blob by rolling over the 100 side, it's not really a legitimate proof. So you might have to take a caliper to the handle where it was cut off, or if you can compare it against the profile of another one, then that would be a better indicator.
Yeah, and that's usually pretty noticeable. I mean, maybe at first, but yeah, for pictures or far away, maybe you couldn't tell as
Yeah.
easily. But if
Yeah.
you're in person and you have hands on it, you can usually
Yeah.
you can figure it out. So with kind of naming some of the different generations and everything, um, you mentioned that time frame. Is that around the first time you basically heard about blobs, or that became a thing? When's the first time you even like heard the word blob and even got interested to
I
like try
think,
it?
yeah, I think the first I heard about blobs was when I was reading the John Brookfield books, and
Mhm.
he was really adamant about the importance of training block weights for well-rounded hand strength. And in one of those books, I'm pretty sure he highlights meeting Richard Sorin and trying his blob.
Mhm.
So, because Richard was a member of the grip board, that held a lot of regard to me that there was a book out there that mentioned a guy on the grip board. Not to mention the fact that Richard pioneered a lot of this stuff. So I set out to get a blob right away. Very early on. It was still 2003, and I bought a blob off of Rick Walker, who was the guy from Punxsutawney who put on the first grip contest I ever went to, the Battle for Grip Supremacy. So I was we had a lunch together. His mom lived in the area of Elmira, so it was real handy for us to catch a workout. And then we went to Olive Garden for dinner with it was Smitty and me and Rick and his wife, and we met up both for that and to buy the blob when he was in the area. And then after we had lunch or whatever, we went out to the parking lot and I chalked it up and I was able to lift it and actually walk with it. So that was the next gen blob, which I still have that blob. And maybe within a year, I had gone down to York and bought my own full dumbbell, which I cut up. And I would say uh, the York head of that dumbbell that I bought is probably the easiest blob that I've ever uh, easiest half 100 that I've ever lifted.
Mhm.
Um, because even, you got variation between the different models. You're also going to have variation within the model as far as like how it comes out of the mold, cast, whatever.
Mhm.
So it just so happens that that one took chalk outstandingly, and um, that lends itself real well to being able to feet with it and stuff like that.
Okay, and what price did you pay?
It was really hard for me to part with the money, but I justified it because I knew that it would enabled me to work towards some of the milestones that Richard Soren had established. $40. $40 was what I paid for
Okay,
that block.
forty
But you have
dollars.
to remember at the time, they were still being produced at York
Yeah.
Barbell. So it would have been just as easy for me to pick a weekend and go to York and buy one. But, I wanted to meet Rick and he was willing to sell, and he was perfectly willing to let it go at that price. That's what he quoted me, and that's what I ended up paying. These days, because of the lack of production of new dumbbells of that size and shape, you know, uh, it's gonna call for a much higher asking price.
Okay. Now, I don't want to get too deep into this, but considering, I mean, obviously things change with time. How do you feel about the current prices today? Do you think like, hey, it's their stuff, they can sell it for whatever, none of my business, or are you still kind of like, man, what are these people doing when they list stuff like $500 for a half? I mean, I don't know. I mean, is it that valuable, or I guess it's whatever you can get somebody to pay for it, right? But
I think the value of anything depends on the person that's got the money.
yeah,
The only thing that pisses me off is when people claim that they're selling a Fat Man blob and it's actually not a Fat Man blob.
yeah, I've
But
seen
as
that a
far
lot.
as the prices, I mean they're really jacked up a lot of times. I don't know what current prices are because I haven't looked, but I know, I mean, $500 for a blob is pretty steep. especially if the buyer is under the impression they need to buy that in order to build strong hands, because they don't. They don't need to
Yeah.
buy. If you're buying it in order to get the opportunity to get on a list where, some of the most famous grip guys of 20 years ago, where, and kind of have your name pop up along with them, then I understand that desire. And, I've overpaid for some stuff in the past too. So in some ways it all evens out. But
Mhm.
yeah, it can get a little annoying sometimes seeing those prices. Especially, if I were to sell something, I would have to ask for a pretty lofty price. But this
Yeah.
stuff means a lot to me, and a lot of the people that are selling blobs for those exorbitant prices are selling things just to flip them, and
Yeah.
they probably A, they can't lift a blob, and B, they don't really care about the history or anything like that. They're just trying to make money. So the motivation behind the price plays a big role.
Okay. That's a good way to put it. Um, and I know you mentioned that next gen blob that you got off Rick Walker, that being kind of
Yeah.
the first one that you had.
Yeah.
Over the years of training and doing everything with them, do you have a favorite blob as far as like just I don't know, one that you enjoy training with the most, or one that's been the most beneficial in training, or just the biggest one you lifted? Is there one that stands out?
As far as the half 100s, probably that one that I got from Rick, because Rick and I ended up being really good friends. And I, a lot of the reasons that I'm even involved in grip have to do with Rick Walker. He got me hooked on it just from the way that he wrote about it. So it's probably my favorite one is that one, the one that I got from him.
Okay. Yeah. So the first one in, yeah, I guess like I said, it's always cool when it has a story to it as well. I
Yeah,
mean, I have a decent little collection of them, and it's like, yeah, some of them you just kind of you stumble upon, and then other ones you're kind of like, oh man, I wouldn't sell that because that was the first one I got or something.
yeah.
So, I totally makes sense. That makes sense with that. And then I was going to ask you, and this would be a pretty easy one for you to answer, is how do you feel like blobs have impacted your training? Like, have you, I guess seen them carry over into other things, or in what ways have you kind of seen blobs be beneficial? I mean, obviously we're talking just, pinch training or wider pinch, especially. I mean, some of the benefits are pretty obvious to us, but is there anything that you feel like gets overlooked with blobs as far as what they
Well,
bring to the table?
dude, I can definitely tell you that when I've been my best at blobs, I've been my best across the board. And I can't necessarily say that the blobs is what did that. It's just that like I think my training was most on point at that time, maybe.
Hmm.
And it goes hand in hand. So when I was, doing things like cleaning, like holding the inch in one hand and then cleaning Blobzilla in the other. That was like 2019, and that's when I won Living Legends. So there was a lot of the right stuff was going on at that time, and I didn't have the injuries, that I would end up taking on, and progress was pretty consistent across the board. So, I saw it as something that when I was hitting the blobs well, then most of my other stuff would also be firing on all cylinders.
Okay. And for that combo lift you're mentioning, did you brace bench dumbbell against your leg?
Not purposefully. Uh,
I'm messing with, yeah, I'm totally just joking,
yeah,
Jed. I don't
no,
know.
but no, I wouldn't do that. But however, when you're, you know, there's pinning, there's bracing, and then there's contact. So like,
Yeah.
those are three different variables.
Could
If you're
almost do
using,
like a hour special on that
yeah, yeah.
for
But
people.
the answer is no. The answer is no. But there was, I'm sure there was contact just because of the uh, uneven loading and the movement of the Blobzilla.
And then kind of talking about that feat, what are some of the most notable feats, or what feats mean the most to you in regards to lifting blobs? Like lifting
Well,
blob father, or maybe cleaning blobzilla, whatever. I mean, whatever kind of stuff you've done. Is there anything that sort of stands out? And it could even be something like that first time you lifted it and walked with it. from the start. It's totally just
I
your
think,
kind of feats. Yeah.
yeah, I'll go with what pops in my mind first, right? So there's a couple. The first one is curling the blob. I mean, that's not easy for me. It hurts my wrist every time I do it, and it's been years since I did that. I don't know how many years. I don't know if I could do it today. I don't know if I'd want to try because Luke got hurt really bad trying to curl the red pill.
Remember
So,
that.
um, so that was tough. And what's cool is I think Luke curled it before me. It was still like in his first year of training, and he did it with his back against the wall also. So he
Yeah.
did like a strict curl with it. But the curl was tough for me because I had to train that. The curl is special to me because I had to train it for a long time. It was very tough. And then Nate Browse came up with the idea of the blob cycle. He's also a baseball fan. So when you hit for the cycle, it means in one game you got a single, double, triple, and a home run. So the blob cycle is when you do a deadlift. I don't remember what the order is.
I think it's clean from there.
Deadlift, clean,
Yeah.
snatch, curl. Is that
I
what it
believe
is?
I believe that's I believe that's the right order.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely for me, the curl is the hardest one. So having to do that at the end. Now, if you go back and look at some of my earlier videos, so go back like 2015, 2016, that's the definite order. So if I'm getting it wrong now, bear with me. But I know I've also put up videos where they went in the wrong order. So, but I believe the stipulation when Nate brought up the feet was to do them in a specific order. So that's how it should be done.
Okay. It's cool
Um,
that you mentioned that because I didn't know that he kind of came up with that. I thought that was something you came up with.
no,
So
no, I was the first one to do it, but he was the one that came up with the idea. And the other one that I would put would be um lifting the blob by the face. I had to train that for a really, really long time, even with my large hands and my fairly mobile thumbs. But I did that in 2005, and I don't think I ever posted the original video up online. I don't think it ever went online. We
hmm.
saved it we were going to come out with a series of videos called "The Shit You've Never Seen." We only ever put out one DVD, but that was on there, and I cut a crazy Ultimate Warrior promo about loading the rocket ships with the fuel and um, how will I prepare to lift the blob by the face? Will I lay on the ground and let them run over me with lawn mowers and stuff like that? It was basically an Ultimate Warrior promo that I just
Yeah.
went to right away. But it was a lot of fun. But nobody's ever seen that because almost nobody's bought that DVD. So, um,
I'm gonna go ahead and make a purchase here soon. As soon as we get done with this, I'm I'm getting one.
I think there's still, well, that one comes from Vivante, so I can order that one at any time. But pretty much all
Okay.
the other DVDs, it's what I got in inventory, and that's it. The other ones are gonna have
Okay.
digital purchases.
I got you. So I guess that's kind of mentioning some of your lifts. I've kind of been doing a similar order with some of these. Who are other people that you've maybe been inspired by them lifting blobs? Somebody else you saw that was training with them that kind of pushed you, or just anybody over the course of your career that you've kind of enjoyed kind of watching them, train blobs?
Oh, there's no, I mean, besides Luke, the only the person that pops into my mind right away is Tim Butler.
Mhm.
So he's reached, I would say he's probably matched every single combination feat that I've ever done with the half 100-pound blob. At least I can't think of anything that I've done that he hasn't done. But I bet there's stuff that he's done that I haven't done. Especially if you go into the category of facelifts. He's way, way better than me at facelift stuff. I, d- I, I don't remember if he's ever curled the blob from the conventional grip, but I think he's done it from the facelift grip.
Yeah,
And
yeah, he's
I
definitely done
don't I don't
that. But
think
I
I ever
don't, yeah, I
did
don't know
that.
about the regular grip. Yeah, I'm not sure.
There's so many combinations. Like so I, a steady stream of content that I was putting out for a long time was me lifting a blob with this in my other hand, or that in the other hand, or this in the other hand, or that in the other hand. Um, I think I may have come up with the idea of going both ways with it in a conversation with you and Chaz, where let's say you've got inch dumbbell in your left hand and blob in the right hand, you pick it up that way, and then you immediately turn around and pick it up blob in the left hand and inch in the right hand. But
Mhm.
as far as like innovating new feats and combos, Tim is the guy that I think of that's right there with me, if not beyond me.
Okay. Now you can name a couple, but if I say this question, we'll say the greatest blob lift of all time. What would you pick if you had? I mean, just it could be the best, biggest, whatever, however you categorize that. What would you say is the greatest blob lift of all time?
Okay, so I'm going to narrow it down to just half 100s.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to go to Steve McGranahan with his combination lift of the blob in one hand and the number three in the other, which probably just about every blob lifter in the world could do today. But up until then, nobody had really combined feats and done two things at the same time. And the reason, beyond that reason, why I point to that is because that's when I figured out that if you sometimes when you combine feats and do something in one hand, or rather, it do two different things in each hand, the radiant tension will help you perform better on at least one or maybe even both of those feats.
Mhm.
So we called that a bipolar lift because it was two different things going on at the same time. So beyond that, I can't really point to why it works except for, you know, I was able to figure out how to maximize my tension in a way that could help me contain the path of the implements and thus perform better on them. So an example, I don't necessarily have an example of a specific combination, but there were times where I couldn't lift something all the way to lockout one-handed, but if I put a blob or a gripper in the other hand, then I would finally be able to lock that implement out for the first time.
Yeah. Okay. So going with Steve McGranahan combo lift.
Yeah, I mean, just nobody
Just
was doing that. Nobody was
yeah.
doing it. Steve was better than just about everybody back in the day. So, like that that may pale in comparison to some of the things we've seen in the last 10 years or even 5 years or all the way up to 15 years. But like I give a lot of respect to people who think outside the box and do stuff differently and try things that nobody else has ever tried.
Yeah. And for this, like, I mean, you kind of mentioned in Tim Butler as a blob lifter that's kind of creative. I mean, Tim kind of falls into that category of doing, I think, stuff kind of a little bit different than, I mean, you mentioned, Steve as far as back then, kind of, I don't know, leading the way. I know you've brought that up on the show before, talking about Steve and combo lifts.
Yep.
And yeah, and if anybody doesn't know, I have a full length interview with Steve. That's not, maybe a couple months old, but yeah, if you're not familiar with Steve, go check that out too.
Yep.
Um, for some history stuff. And then I guess for everything you've done with blobs, um, combinations, everything else, is there anything else on your list that you still think is possible that you're still chasing that you're gunning for? Or do you kind of just, I don't want to say like train regular now because it's still not regular, the stuff you would be doing, but do you have anything that you're like new territory you're going after
But
when it comes to blobs?
I mean, I'm still working on the 145. And when I say that, you have to understand I haven't trained on the half 145 in probably 6 months.
Okay, yeah. Just
Um,
whenever you get around to it.
it's just like I have to manage my workload a lot more now because my left hand is so gummed up. I mean, I'm 5 years now in this injury. So, um, I'm just not, I'm not peaked. I'm not, you know, I just haven't done blob work, frankly. But, you know, what would be cool is It's a lot easier to reach the half 100. It would be cool to see people doing like farmers walks for distance, like a double
Yeah.
farmers walk for distance. Um, Luke and I used to do that when it would first when we were still training in the garage, and the harsh winter has finally gone by, and we can go outside and actually do stuff. We would take the blobs out and just take them for a walk. And I think the last time we did that, it was like November of 2024 or January. It was part of the winter, this past winter, where it was unseasonably warm. So we were like, screw this, we're going outside. And I had my wrestling shoes on, and we were on sidewalk. And like every time I strode, every step that I took, it was like a shock wave going through my body.
Yeah.
So like that made it a lot harder. The times that I've carried two blobs the furthest were out in a lawn. So the ground's a lot more forgiving. But I haven't seen a lot of people doing long distance farmers walks with two blobs. It would be interesting to see what some of the stronger blob performers could do in that kind of a feat.
Yeah, I think I've done a few walks with double fat mans. I don't know how long. I'd have to go back and check. And then next gen, obviously, I mean, being a little smaller kind of fits my hand better.
Sure.
I know I've done some longer ones with next gens, but it's not something I've done probably probably in about 2 years, maybe. So yeah, I probably need to get out there and see what I can do with it, or yeah, we'll see what other people do if they start doing farmers walks with it.
The other
Um,
one you don't see too much is blob plus weight, and I know Timmy's done quite a bit of weight on that.
yeah,
That was back before the legacy blobs came out. It was kind of like, how can we make this harder? How can we show off a little bit? So we started adding weight with plates, and specifically, I would take like a boot string and tie it through the plates and then drape them over the blob.
yeah,
So I th- I know I got up to 20 pounds added, but like what didn't occur to me is that I had the string so long that the weights weren't really, they were hanging off the blob. So I could
mhm,
actually get like a boost off the ground with just the blob, then the weights would engage, and I got it all the way to lockout. I can't remember if I ended up doing it with the string short enough that the weights weren't touching the ground prior to the left. But that's a really tough feat also.
yeah. For that style of attaching the weights to it, I know it's simple. I mean, you're tying a shoelace or like you said, like a boot string or something. You know, you're tying the weights over top of it. Is there anybody that you picked that up from, or is that just something you kind of just did on your own?
I think Wade Gillingham was the first guy I saw to do that, to try that,
Okay.
I think. And then at Night of Strength in 2004, which was after the first night of the Arnold Classic in a big hotel conference room. It was either I know the first one was '04 that I went to, but I can't remember which one um Richard came to and lifted with us, and he was doing my hex blocks that I had with magnets. I had never seen plate mates before. He brought a bunch of plate mates to this thing and was adding weight to hex blocks that I was just finally able to lift shortly prior to that night of strength. So
Mhm.
that was really impressive. And I mean, Richard, this was 2004, 2005. So Richard was in his late 50s, early 60s at the time, still pulling off these tremendous feats. So that was really awesome to see.
Yeah, and then I don't know. Yeah, I guess there's other. I mean, you have a lot of other training stuff that you've put out. I mean, and people can check that stuff out if they, like I said, if they want to look into it. But I mean, where you've had like band assisted stuff, just full books and training programs based around lifting blobs as well. So,
Well,
uh,
I was subjected to West Side training, conjugate training, and the incorporation of accommodating resistance, before I even knew what grip training was. So it was only just a matter of time till I started using that in my grip work. And yeah, because I know it works, I would put it in my resources, so they're all
Mhm.
available in the store. So, uh, I've got several products about the Blob. I've got Lift the Blob, which I know you have. You've done a review of it here
Yeah,
on
and that's a book that people could
channel.
buy if they
Yeah.
wanted it. Yeah.
And then I've got a block weight DVD/digital video. I've got the Blob Warfare workout, which basically I put it out during COVID, and it was a workout based around basically the top 3 or 4 drills that I thought were most productive. So, like in the Lift the Blob, I kind of shared everything that I knew about blob training, but a lot of that stuff I kind of discarded. It just didn't seem to work for me. So I kind of pared it down to the stuff that I always did that always seemed to work for me, and I put them in a workout called the Blob Warfare workout. Um,
That's pretty much the most recent one, right?
yeah, I
I mean, as far as like
think so.
programs or content
Yeah,
related to blobs, that's kind of the, I
yeah,
guess the more like the most modern or updated
yeah.
training, kind of
Mhm. I think
compiled
so.
together.
Yep.
Um, yeah, that covers a lot of it, Jed. Is there anything I don't know that you would like to add in or maybe close with that relates to blobs or anything comes to
Well,
mind?
what's exciting is the fact that now companies are coming out with like loadable blobs, and it's yet to be seen if these will be implements that start producing new blob lifters. So I know Microgains has released at least one run of their loadable blob replica, and I know there's others out there. But if I would say this without without I don't want to take anything away from anybody who's got their own business, but certain loadable blobs match the size, shape, and dynamics of the an actual blob better than others. And as far as the ones that I've seen, probably the micro gains matches everything the best. So I would think that that would be the loadable blob that would be the best option. Um, what I meant to bring up was I found the PDA, I think it's called Blobette, which was a loadable blob that you could put, it was hollow and you could put shot in it. And
Uh,
I found that downstairs. A guy named Tony Spinillo let me borrow that back in, I think it was so I could include a picture of it in Lift the Blob, which I put out in like 2012 or 2013, and I still have it. I found it the other day downstairs in my storage. So that's probably something a lot of people have never seen or even heard of before, and I happen to possess one. I won't say I own it because I there was no monetary exchange. That's Tony
yeah.
Spinello's um, blob tool. But yeah, I would just say that like if anybody has a question on whether they should buy something, I welcome you writing me or leaving me a comment because if people buy something, I want them to invest their money wisely and get something that's going to help them in their training. And some of these things I just don't see as good options for proper carryover. So
Okay. Yeah. And then, no, Jed, thanks again for, taking the time. Like I said, I view you as, you're somewhat of the blob expert, right? Because all the history stuff we named. So,
yeah,
uh,
well,
means
I
a lot,
appreciate it.
taking the time to do the show. So,
Thank you. If anybody wants to check out those products, it's dieselcrew.com/store/shop.
all right. Yeah. And that link will be in the description for anybody. I usually put it with every show, but yeah, that'll be down there somewhere for
Cool. And
anybody
I
that
know
needs to
there's a
check it out. So,
discount code. Throw that in there too, but I forget what it was. So
Grip Show 20. I
Grip
think if you
Show.
use, yeah, if you use Grip Show 20, it'll get 20% off of whatever products people get from the site. So,
Alrighty.
yep, we'll see if anybody snags some blob material from you there.
Yeah, and if
But no,
I don't send it to you right away, understand that like it's there's a copy and paste method that goes along with sending the access page to the digital products. The other day, I didn't send someone a product within like an hour and a half because I was driving, and they put in a PayPal dispute, and
Oh
PayPal
hell.
actually refunded the dude's money back to him. And I sent him the product as soon as I possibly could. So it's one of the traps of, selling online, I guess. But man, I just can't believe after all the support I've gotten, you know, I've been like, I haven't been hacked, but like what's it called when they like replicate your debit card?
I mean, I don't know, just fraud.
Yeah, fraud. Yeah, I've been
Yeah, I don't know.
defrauded several times. And
Fraudulent purchases.
I've always PayPal's always returned my money and all that stuff. Like I've never had a bad thing to say about them, but I don't know how they came to this decision to refund this dude his money. But
You're taking too long, man. You don't have time to
sorry.
be driving. You need to sit. You need to sit there and
Yeah,
wait
God
for the
forbid
next
when the
sale.
purchase is made and I'm asleep at that time. So, oh well, it is
That's
what
why.
it is.
That's why I'm always up at like 3 a.m. trying to buy stuff just to complain and
Yeah.
give you bad reviews. No, I'm messing around, Jed. But well, but no, man. Hey, well, I'll see you in the future sometime on the show, I'm sure. And Nationals is coming up, so
See you
I'll
then
I'll
too.
definitely be seeing you there. So yeah, hope your training goes well. And like I said, thanks again for doing the show.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for having me again. Appreciate it.
Okay, so with me right now, I have Tim Butler. So
Yeah.
if any of you people have been online in the grip community, Instagram, YouTube, you've probably come across Tim's videos. Tim is, to my knowledge, the only person in grip sport that was featured on InfoWars. So Tim, Tim has been out there. And yeah, I mean, a lot of views, a lot of years, a lot of videos put up, and a lot of respect in the community. So with us doing an episode on blobs, about how long, Tim, have you, I guess since you first found out about blobs, like how long have you been training with them? Probably.
Uh, I found out about them like just from like related grip videos way back, probably a little over 9 years ago.
Mhm.
It's just I was probably Jedd or Paul Knight for the OGs who know about him. Just one of their videos. And I didn't get my first one until a few months later. So it's going up on 9 years since I first got my first blob, and that was a legacy.
Okay. What legacy was it? What size? Just curious.
It was a half hundred. There was like a
Okay.
whole dumbbell for like $120 you could get back then. And I remember I
Yeah.
think the first time I ever contacted Jedd, actually, I emailed him like, "Is it still worth getting a legacy?" Because I saw the videos, they're different or something like that.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, that's good, man. How easy was that for you to lift right away? Or how did that feel?
I once I got like a little bit of chalk texture on there, I think it was like my third or fourth attempt. I lifted
Okay.
it up.
So pretty much
Yeah,
like right away you were lifting
yeah,
that.
but like I had pinched like five standard tens before then, so like I guess I'd say it's around that level.
Yeah.
And the legacy, it was like a lighter one too. Most legacies are a little light. It was like 47.1 pounds, I think. So
Yeah.
it was
And
a
then
good entry. Well,
yeah, no, for sure. And that was one of the things I was going to bring up was, like when was the first time you ever saw or heard of someone lifting a blob? Like, was it just through like a Jed video or just something online?
yeah, it's
And
just on YouTube. I can't remember if it was just related YouTube videos and one of Jedd's videos, or if I saw something on a grip board. It was either Jedd or Paul Knight lifting a
Mhm.
blob, and yeah, it was just a few months after that when I ended up ordering that dumbbell. So that's yeah,
Okay, and
almost
that
a
was you
decade
said
ago.
that was a half 100 legacy. You said
Yeah, that was my first blob.
okay, and then from there, considering that you could lift that pretty early on, what were you kind of shooting for after that, or how soon did the collection sort of? I don't know. You know how it is in grip. You get like
Oh,
one thing kind of knocked off the list, and then it's like, well, then the collection grows, and you start climbing up the ladder. Did you start doing that after that, or?
yeah, pretty much right away. Like I got a blob on eBay, and I thought it was a fat man, and that one took me I think like two or three like sessions to lift. And then like once I learned more about blobs and knew what a fat man was, I realized it was just next gen.
Then you're like,
But
oh, well, but it's actually like kind of a good mistake because you're like, oh, well, now I got to get a fat man. So now you just have both. You know what I mean?
But I don't think I got a fat man for like another like year and a half or 2 years after that.
Well, it can be tough too, because man, I now I mean everybody thinks they're going to retire if they sell them. You know, like oh they're planning their retirement with the prices they put up these days. But even just back a few years ago, um, you know, they just weren't really that prevalent. Like I think sometimes you go on eBay and you go a good, 6, 7 months and not see a fat man or almost a year and not really see him. Now, in certain circles, people could maybe hunt him down or, have access to him or have a buddy that would sell it to him. But for the most part, like publicly just signing in and like, oh, there's just a couple on eBay. It wasn't really kind
Yeah,
of like that. So sometimes you'd be sitting around like waiting and other people are waiting on it too. And it almost is like a race to see who can get the item
exactly.
because they're rare.
The for sale section and on Gripboard, that was like where like a lot there's a lot more active back in the day, and like that's
Hmm.
where you'd usually be able to snag something like that. But yeah, I think I did get my Fat Man from the Gripboard. That was like
Okay.
2018 though.
Okay. Um, and I'm kind of just going to kind of go in order with some of these questions. Once you got more familiar with blobs and you've had, I mean, like you said, almost a decade of lifting them now, what is your favorite blob that you own? And like I said, that could be something that's like, hey, I like that one because it's the first one I lifted, or hey, that one because it's the biggest one I lifted, or just whichever one you think looks the coolest. I don't know. It's totally just your opinion. Like, what is your favorite blob that you kind of have or that you've used?
I would say definitely my half 100 next gen, just because it was one of my first blobs, and then also it's basically been my workhorse. Like it's one of those things where like for years now, like it's kind of like my warm up, and it's like I would get the most reps out of it, and I could do the most like other feats with it, by the face and curls and adding weight and transfers and all that stuff. It's still like it's still like it's not easy per se, but I can still do like a lot of like extra stuff with it. And if I could only have one blob ever for the rest of my life, it'd be that one.
Okay, no, that's a perfect answer. Yeah, that's like dead on. That's good. That makes a lot of sense though too, because yeah, some of these blobs we talk about, like we're excited that we lift them because it's like at the maximal end of your range, but then that like the majority of days you can't just keep going back to it. It's like
It
maxing
just
out,
sits there.
So yeah. So some of them it's like you kind of appreciate the ones that are more in that working range because like you said, you get more reps out of them and you just kind of almost have more history with it sometimes. So no, that's a solid answer, man. And then another question is with training blobs because they're kind of in their own lane. I mean, it is pinch, but it's a real wide pinch. It's a little bit different.
Mm.
Um, how do you feel training with the blobs has helped your other lifts? Is there anything you've noticed that it carried over to? Do you feel that it sort of helped you in a particular lift or for a certain competition or just in or achieving another feat? Just any type of carryover that maybe you've experienced.
It's honestly hard to tell just because I've been doing like everything like for all this time. Like I had pinch implements before I started training blobs.
Hmm.
So it's hard. It's kind of hard to tell, but like I do know like when my blobs are doing better than my pinch lifts are doing better. But I do feel like they work your wrist pretty good, especially like you can apply a lot of flexion. So
Hmm.
like that could be good for having carry over to other lifts where there's not as much flexion involved. But I'm
Yeah.
not really sure how much direct carryover that has things.
Yeah, no, I said, I mean, it's all personal experience. I mean, but if you just happen to notice something, that's all. Like if there was one time you're like, oh man, I was training blobs and I did this, or maybe like you said, maybe you just know that if your blobs are at a higher level, your pinch lifts are going to be a little bit better because you're just kind of in that pinch lane a little bit more. So yeah, man.
Yeah, because it's weird though, because like my 3 inch Saxon bar is like bad, but my blobs are good. So I don't know, like I don't really see any carryover at all. So it's like I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, it could be hand position. It could just be shape, and like it might just be time and training, because I mean, think about how many more reps you've done on blobs than you've done on a Saxon bar. Not saying it doesn't have some
That's
carryover,
true.
but like I mean, there's certain things where I'll kind of do similar stuff where I might think like, well, man, I do this one lift, and in theory, this other lift should be good, but for me, it would probably be inch dumbbells. Like you'd think with some of the inch dumbbells I can pick up, you'd be like, man, he's like got to be a monster on rolling handles, and it's like not not as good as I am on the bells. It just
Yeah,
it's a little different, So it might be something
it
similar to
is
that,
different.
where where
Yeah,
where
because
you
I'm
put your
thinking too,
time.
like my one of my weaker areas is what I call like flat finger pressure, and those the
Mhm.
type of pinches where like your fingers are more flat pinching on there. With the blob, there's that curve. I just feel
Yeah,
like I'm a lot stronger in that kind of position than the flat finger pressure position.
yeah. It's almost if you were doing like a vertical plate pinch where you almost were here, you can't really use
Yeah,
flexion, or you're not getting
or even
that like
Even
contour.
Saxon, there's a lot more of that flat. Like you're just over the joint, and then you're kind of like your fingers are just flat. It's not just the tips. It's just
Yeah.
like
You lose a little bit of leverage, I mean, in a way, or the pressure is a little bit different that you're applying. So I
it's different.
I get what you mean. Hopefully everybody else will get it. If not, just keep training and do more reps on both, and you'll feel some difference at some point. But and then we talked about your favorite blob being your next gen, just because it was kind of your workhorse and one of the first ones you got as well. Now that you've had I don't want to necessarily say long career, but yeah, I mean, if we want to call, all the lifts you've done like a
Getting up
blob
there now, yeah.
career, you know, um, but with as long as you've been training with them, you've pulled off some very unique lifts, some just regular, I mean, standard, just very high level lifts. Um, what lifts have you done that are probably your favorite? Like, just whether it was a milestone that you had to reach and really dig deep for, or whether it was just just something in training that you tried a couple times, or you got this new idea and then you pulled it off and you hadn't seen anybody else do it. Just your favorite lifts that you've done, and you've done so many. But if you could kind of narrow it down to a handful of them or something, just
Yeah, I got a few. It comes to the point where it's hard to like know which ones are tougher when I get to the hardest ones, like between like the Blob Father, Napalm Blob, um, the KWN 60 and the Hall Blob. It's kind of hard for me to tell which ones are the hardest. Like people tend to think that it's the Hall Blob, and I've looked at that one, so maybe it was that one, but I haven't looked at the Blob Father yet. So like, I don't know. Me personally, I think the Hall Blob, the Napalm Blob, those two are probably like my biggest like favorite single blob lifts.
okay.
And
And
then
that would be with a Hall 30, right? A
yeah, yeah,
Hall
yeah,
30
sorry, the
kilo
30
blob.
kilogram one.
And then for the napalm blob, you're talking a half 135 legacy, so just above Blobzilla.
Yeah, between Blobzilla and Blobfather.
Yep.
And then I guess just as far as like blob feats, the I did the blob cycle with a fat man by the face. Um,
Okay. I don't know
yeah,
if I was
I'm just
aware of
pretty
that
proud.
one. Yeah, I don't know if I
Yeah,
was
I'm
aware of that
pretty
one.
proud of that one.
No, that's ridiculous. I mean, I'll have to go I have to go back in the archives and dig it up
I
and find
never
it.
thought I would ever get that in my life when I first started. Like, I never thought I'd clean a next gen by the face. Like this
Yeah.
thing, like just goes to show, training for long enough.
I mean, yeah,
Um,
I don't know when if that would have been before I really tuned into certain stuff, or maybe I just missed it for some reason, but
yeah,
that's
it wasn't too
major.
long ago, actually. I think it was like a year and change, maybe.
Okay. So I probably saw it. Maybe I just forgot about it or something. I don't know why, but um,
Sometimes they just get buried. Like, I don't know.
there's a lot of
They all
stuff
look
out
the
there,
same in
man.
the thumbnail. It all looks like you're just grabbing the blobs. It's like,
But
I have one
that's a
one more is the half hundred next gen transfer by the face and then the curl at the end.
okay. Yeah. And mentioning by the face for anybody that isn't aware, most people should be, but typically you just pinch a blob from the top with it kind of being upright. By the face is just if it's laid sideways and you're basically just doing a face pick, or it's the side of the blob and you're basically using your fingertips around it. Hopefully that'll explain that. Most people already probably got it, but the thing I want to dive into with that real fast though is we've talked about lifting blobs. You first hearing about them. You're really known for doing the facelifts on blobs, and you've really kind of honed a certain style and skill because you don't have extremely large hands. You do have a way that you can kind of, maneuver and set your thumb, and you can get around to get some purchase on some of these things. But most people with your hand size are not on, they're not facelifting these things. They're not even coming close to doing some of the things you're doing. It's like a different level. So you didn't necessarily start at that level. It was a progression that you did.
A long
But
time.
who's the first person that you saw doing a facelift or something like that, or what kind of got you to, I guess, explore that route?
The first person I saw was Jed, and on YouTube, though, not in person, and also a guy, Daniel Reynard, I think is how
Yep.
you pronounce his last name. But he's another guy who just like kind of looked like normal guy without huge hands, and he was like also lifting blobs by the face and lifting Blobzilla back when it was like almost unheard of.
Hmm.
And I don't know, I just did some research. I was like, oh, no one else it seems can lift the half hundred by the face, so I just kind of like made it a goal of mine, and it seemed impossible, but like with a lot of like messing around with different angles, and I did a lot of like hand stretching to make my hands like more flexible. I have like really flexible hands and fingers, and it eventually like it just enough training and getting stronger and figuring out those angles and getting that flexibility. I was just able to get the feet and then take it further than I ever imagined I would.
Yeah. And like we mentioned, I mean, you've done stuff where you said it was a next gen that you transferred by the face.
Yeah,
So, I mean, a 50 pound blob, or maybe 50 and some change being a next gen, maybe just a little over. But yeah, so going, hand to hand catching it. I mean, it's hard enough just getting a grip when it's on the ground. You know what I mean? Like it's just setting your grip regular, but when it's flying through the air, I mean, if it tilts a little bit or it's a little uneven, I mean, there's a level of, you know what I mean? Kind of, I don't want to say like finesse, but you have to be a little bit
it
sharp with
definitely
what you're
took
doing. Because I
it took
mean,
it took a lot of attempts to get that down. That's for
and
sure.
then to curl it, because then you have to still maintain that pressure. And when you go from catching it's one thing, but then to like start turning it or going, and then the wrist, everything just starts to change where you're feeling all the pressure. You know what I mean? Kind of like,
Mhm.
I don't say this is a bad example, but like if you clean a plate by the hub, you still have to stay engaged, because if you don't stay engaged, it's just going to crumble it's just going to smash your fingers down. You know what I mean? It's not like you try hard and then you land
Just
it and
gonna
then
let
you're like,
go.
oh, I can just relax. You can't relax because it's going to fold every one of your fingers down. So similar to that, when you catch it, not only do you have to hold on where it's at, now when you flip it to go curl, you're going to start, okay, it goes to your wrist or this finger, that finger. Once you start to come up, if your wrist bends back, okay, like your thumb might barely be holding on. I'm just saying it's a complex lift, and there's a lot of moving parts going on with that. So that's a cool one, man. And yeah, but I would say you are, I don't know, how popular it is necessarily, but yeah, I mean, if anybody's going to talk facelifts with blobs, they have to mention you. I feel like you're kind of the best at it. And yeah, like I said, I know Thomas Larsen has really big hands, and I'm going to be speaking with him as well, for facelifting and things. But man, for everything you've done, as long as you've done in as many different combos, I think you're probably the best at facelifting blobs. So to kind of take that thing that maybe wasn't really as popular, or you know what I mean, it wasn't the first way to lift it, and actually kind of turn that into a, I don't know, something that people are trying to do, or even if no one else is trying to do it, you're still pushing it to levels that you didn't think were possible,
Yeah,
and other people are looking at it like, man, how's he even doing this stuff? It's just been cool to see.
it was always just a very impressive feat to me. So that's why I don't know, for some reason I just gravitated towards it.
Yeah, man. And any other like favorite lifts that you can think of regarding blobs? or any combos? Um,
Um, I'm trying to think. I mean, I did do a double fat man clean by the face.
okay.
That one wasn't one that like really like worked towards though. I'm trying to think of other ones. It's tough.
Well, there's so
I
many.
did I did curl a 120 legacy.
Okay. No, I don't know that I've seen too many people curl a 120, to be honest.
I think just me, Ben Helms, Luke Raymond, and
I was gonna say,
possibly W. I'm not sure.
yeah. Luke's underrated when it comes to blob curls.
He's underrated when
Luke's
it
one of
comes
the
to a lot. He's like just really
no,
strong in
yeah,
general.
Luke's a monster, man. But Luke is very strong on blob curls.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah. I
mean,
saw him
he's
attempting a Blobzilla before, which was just nuts. But
yeah. And Luke is kind of in that same category. I mean, similar to me and you. I mean, I think we all roughly have maybe slightly different hand anatomy, but pretty close. None of us are really known for having big
he's
giant
hands.
hands, you know.
He was another person that was kind of like my inspiration for. I never thought I'd like lift Blobzilla initially, and then I saw guys like him and that guy Daniel Rayner lift it. So they were kind of like my inspiration, like, oh, it is possible for someone with like not gigantic hands. So
Yeah,
it was
though
like good
I had to
motivation.
use you guys.
Yeah, so kind of we all feed
I
off
had to
each other.
use
It's a
you and
chain.
Luke because I'm like, man, like I know I can do it, but years and years and years, you just don't hardly even break ground with it. And you're just like, man,
Yeah,
I got other stuff to train. I'm not doing that. But I just pulled off my first successful lift probably, well, what was that? Maybe, I think maybe March or February. I think it was February. I lifted Blobzilla for the first time, but I
yeah.
mean, dude,
I
it
saw
was
you
like,
posting it.
but it was like,
That's like a heavier one too, right? It's like a 65 pounder.
close. Yeah, just under. But
Mm.
the texture's pretty good. But yeah, I know some, they'll be 62 to 65.
Mine's only like 63.3, I think.
Yeah, but man, regardless, when we're talking about just blobs, block weights, something like that, when you start talking 60 some pounds or mid 60s, I mean, and that wide, that's a huge
Yeah.
lift. But yeah, man, it took me probably maybe 4 years messing around with blobs, about 4 years before I actually just did that. And like, if I had to replicate it, I don't know if I could, this second, any session like this week, I don't know that I could do it this week. Maybe one day or something I could warm up and hit it, but yeah, it's not like a everyday lift for me. You know what I mean? Like I got to
Yeah.
be in the
Yeah.
right zone for it. But no, yeah, looking at you guys, that was the only reason that I was like, okay, it's possible. Like I've been in person with these guys, I've lifted with them. Our hand sizes are similar. I haven't done it yet. They're doing it. I got to get there, So yeah, you guys kind of motivated me to at least keep pushing at that one, even when it seemed like I was like, I got to that point a couple of times where I'm like, man, maybe it's just a anatomy thing and I just can't, you know. But once you have others that have kind of displayed the proof, you kind of end up coming off as like a quitter, or you kind of throw in the towel
Yeah,
early,
exactly.
like,
It's like,
like,
you gotta just
yeah,
keep going at it.
I gotta lift it. Um,
It took me
but
like 4 or 5 years too to probably closer to 5 to lift Clubzilla.
yeah, about the same. I mean, it really was. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't even roll it out half the time, even during blob sessions. It's like I'm not even gonna pretend to try. And
Mhm.
then, on certain days you get feeling really, really good. Okay, I'm worked up. I hit a 120 or 125 legacy. Bring out Blobzilla. Won't budge, or it feels like it's a half inch wider than the other ones. And I'm like, this ain't even the same ball game. And yeah, go back defeated for years and years. But so if we kind of move on from that, um, I guess it kind of ties into this because we're talking about some other lifters, right? Um, Basically, who are other blob lifters that you've kind of enjoyed watching them lift and train? Maybe something they did was a little bit different, or just their style and how they set up, or certain combinations they did. Is there anybody that, you being one of the major blob lifters who's done all kinds of stuff, whose lifts do you kind of get excited to see or, check out?
Um, I mean, pretty much all the like really crazy blob lifts that I see out there, like Ben Helms had a lot of crazy like combo blob lifts. And right now, W Grip is just off the charts. Like every day, he's posting something that's like even harder than the day before.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's weird. Like I guess not like you were saying, not as many people post blobs regularly these days. Like a lot of like Jedd's blob stuff is what kind of got me into them. But I'm trying to think as of like currently though, like uh, I'm not sure.
No, it's kind of tough. I
Like
mean,
W is definitely up there. Like
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, especially like when we talk like max, like just max pure top end blob strength.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he's up there. I mean, lifting the basically the biggest blobs that anybody has. So the top end is there. Trying to think of, and like I said, I mean, you just don't want to sit here and like name the same people we've already talked about. But I mean, but
I
yeah,
feel like it's kind of
it's small
it's
small circle to some extent. But yeah, like I said, I mean, I'd see like you, Jed, Luke doing different things. That's where a lot of stuff early on for me. It was you guys kind of posting stuff or just seeing that. So um, yeah, but it does seem like there it's still kind of alive and people are into it and chasing it, but you don't quite see it as much. At least posted from other people. Whereas
yeah.
like over the
They used our little
years,
circle used to post pretty regularly. Like 4 or 5 of us would be posting like
um,
blob stuff
and
a
I don't
couple
know,
times a
sometimes
week.
these things kind of come and go in waves. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll see kind of an influx after this episode. Maybe some people will be snagging some blobs off eBay or trying to hunt down some stuff or brushing all that dust off the ones they haven't been training with, and maybe they'll get back into it after they watch this. But yeah, I was just curious if you had other lifters that maybe did a little something different or something that stood out to you, or oh man, I tune in and like watching so and so do this. Um,
I
but
mean, Thomas Larsen, any kind of blob stuff he does is just amazing.
yeah.
He's done transfers by the page too. He's
He has a kind of a cool collection too of blobs because I think he
yeah,
has like a Silarukov, which I've never got to try, like the Russian
yeah,
blobs. I think
yeah,
I've seen him do stuff with that, and I always I wanted one just for like collection's sake and just to try it because they're blue and like you got like the red pill, but like
yeah.
this
You
blue
got to
one, I'm
have
like I
the.
almost feel like I need that to match the set. But I've never had my hands on a Silarukov blob,
I
and
can't
I
even
don't know if
remember if I may have attempted one because I know Jed. I'm pretty sure Jed borrowed one at a time,
he
unless he
did,
actually still has it. But I can't
yeah.
remember if I tried it or not.
But I always thought those look cool. But yes, I've seen like
Yeah,
Thomas doing stuff with the Silarukov, or he being I think he's based in Norway. Um, but yeah, he just has a different you know collection of blobs and whatever stuff that I haven't ever got to touch. So and aside from that, I mean huge hands and like super strong with everything.
yeah, really strong.
Whether it's the facelift, curling
I'm
them,
pretty sure
cleaning
he
them,
lifted a
just
blob father. I think maybe. Pretty
I,
sure.
I was gonna say I definitely know like Blobzilla by the face.
Yeah,
It did,
and
but
he could lift Blobzilla the normal way, like
yeah,
like easily. Like he makes it look easy.
yeah, he's definitely up there. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Thomas says when I get around to him for his questions. So if you had to pick one, and this is just your opinion, like what is the greatest blob related feat, basically like all time? Is there one that stands out to you as being like the most monumental? Um,
Um,
just
I think I'd have to say it definitely doesn't get as much credit. Not a lot of people know about it, but Ben Helms' double Fat Man blob cycle. It's like just the
okay.
amount of blob cycles in general that exist, just single blob cycles is like there's
Yeah.
only a few, and then like the double Fat Man is just like so ridiculous. I haven't done a normal Fat Man one. I've only done one by the face, which is kind of weird, but
Yeah.
imagine doing a double is just like
That's
ridiculous.
that it's interesting that you say that because I've been chipping away at doing some of these other interviews for the episode and it's come up that
Ooh.
if you had to like ask me and I could give like, I'm not gonna do it right now, but if I had to do like my in-depth analysis on why I would pick it, um, that one's very high up on my list, right up there with probably as good as any. Because yeah, I mean the double fat man, clean snatch curl, all rapid fire under. I forget how fast he even did it too, but it was like
Just doing it in general,
pretty.
like
Yeah, yeah.
the amount of difference between like, because I've done like just a double clean with a fat man, like the difference between doing one and two at the same time is like it's exponential. Like it's so awkward to do the double
For
clean.
sure. Yeah, I've done I've cleaned double next gens. Um, I've cleaned a Fat Man and I've cleaned a 120 Legacy, but just solo. I haven't even attempted a double Fat Man clean. But see, doing this episode, you guys are going to get me thinking, and it's going to like
Yeah, some ideas now.
it's going to light a fire up, and I'm going to be coming back with some blob stuff here soon. But yeah, I haven't attempted a double fat man clean, but the snatch is just out. Like I don't even know that I could do a single one, for a snatch. But yeah, no, that is a really good choice because like I mean that would be mine. Um, I think there are certain things where like Brian or W lifting the Shaw blob. I think those are cool because it's kind of like man, it's just
The
so.
biggest blob, yeah.
But um, but then you can drop down and start, well, okay, but yeah, those dudes lifting that, is that any better than like you transferring something by the face and catching it with your fingertips and curling it? Like, how do we start judging
Yeah,
it? It
because
becomes
there's
very,
like blob lifts and then there's blob feats. I feel they're kind of different categories.
yeah.
Blob
One's
lifts and
just a
blob
standard
feats.
deadlift, and then when you get
Yeah.
the combo and freestyle stuff going, yeah, I don't know, stuff can change. But yeah, anything else to add on that one, or do you feel pretty good with that as kind of like
Um,
being up there?
yeah, because like I was gonna mention the shawl blob stuff, like you said, but
Mhm.
like as far as just the feet, where just like my brain just kind of explodes, just like watching it, the double fat man blob cycle.
Yeah, and then I guess you kind of mentioned it because you're talking about you didn't really think that you would ever be lifting blobs by the face the way you do.
Mhm.
So you've kind of answered this a little bit, but if you have any other things that you'd like to go into more detail about, um, is there anything else blob wise that you basically never thought would be possible and you managed to finally pull it off? Like something that took a little bit longer than normal or something that you almost didn't really think and then boom, it clicked one day. Any moment like that?
Well, after Blobzilla, I was like, all right, that's my cap, and then I ended up getting the napalm blob, so I guess that one technically too. And then just with the blobs by the face, I thought like there's no way I can lift a fat man by the face because like the next gen seemed like max, like the very max of my abilities. So like I guess it just goes to show like just keep working at something and like hand flexibility too, trying to do stretches to get your hands more flexible. You can just go farther than you think. And like I don't know, certain blobs like I have to like I've rarely ever just go like randomly pick it up one day. I kind of have to go into the yellow room of pain with like an intention to attack this specific blob, like this
Hmm.
mindset that I'm really gonna like go all in on it and study every like attempt that I do on it. And yeah, those are usually like my best blob sessions.
Yeah, I think you could correct me if I'm wrong, but like that's definitely one way that it happens, right? I mean, I'm kind of the same way where like you kind of go into it thinking like, okay, I have everything mapped out. This is the plan, and you're basically just going kind of maybe in order as you attack it. And then I've had other times where it's kind of like on the fly, where like I'm just feeling so good doing other stuff that I'm like, hey, while we're on a roll, get this stuff out here. Like, let me start trying. And then, I don't know, like very similar, like a next gen, like throw a 50-pound next gen out. And I can usually tell if I just barely put my hand on it and like if I lift it and it feels like it weighs 5 pounds, I'm like, okay, like let's do some heavier blobs. If I pick it up and I'm kind of like, ah man, it felt closer to 50 pounds. Maybe the blobs aren't there. So sometimes I'll just kind of spring off after I'm doing other stuff, depending on how like the next
How the
gen or
initial
the
ones feel.
yeah.
It
Uh,
depends for me, I guess. Like because it's weird too, because I'd say like next gens and Fat Man are very different from Blobzilla and up, because like even how my angles of my thumb, how I'm grabbing it, it becomes like kind of a different lift, and I have to focus more on like changing my positioning when moving up from a smaller blob to like Blobzilla. So it kind of, I guess, depends. But you're right. There are the days where the next gen just comes up and like you know that things are gonna get like pretty strong.
Yeah, if it's
And
just like locked in my hand, and like I said, if it almost feels weightless, and I'm like, oh, like yeah, I can start, just attacking these heavier ones. That's how I kind of gauge it sometimes. But yeah,
like if it's like a huge blob, like I have to like be like visualizing, I guess, like it's weird, like wrapping my hand around it the right way. Like it takes a lot more thought than like just a other blob feats or something. Just for me, I don't know.
no, for sure. Because I mean, because at a certain point, and we've seen this with bigger hand, bigger, stronger people that are maybe higher up on the ladder of blobs, if we want to say, towards the top end, there there comes a point where some of these guys can kind of naturally come in and just kind of grab and go. Hey,
Yeah.
I lifted the 120 my first time. But then everybody sort of has their own ceiling, and it might be different for all of us, but they start to get closer to that ceiling. And as they approach that ceiling, it's like, okay, well, now you have to actually kind of pay attention to what you're doing. Like now you need to
Mhm.
start remembering where your thumb needs to be or how you should adjust your thumb because this is different for whatever XYZ reason. So I think that for a, I don't want to say beginner, but like for people, regardless of how strong they can be very strong and lift big blobs. But if they start getting to that maximal lift or that lift that's next up that they can't lift, you almost have to kind of diagnose things that way and kind of reflect on your training and positioning. And you got to start taking that stuff kind of serious because it's something you can't really just sort of muscle through at some point. You
Yeah.
you you have to like be smart about it. So, but yeah, no. So yeah, I think most people would probably share that thought as far as yeah, I know they might not attack it as in depth as you, or they might not put as much focus into it as you have, maybe. Um, but I think at some point everybody's kind of forced to have to. I don't know. I guess that fork in the road. I can just keep doing it this way, or hey, maybe I need to reevaluate and actually get better and figure out what I'm doing.
Feel like
But
it's always a little. There's always a little adjustment you can make. Almost always a little adjustment you can make to get better at something. Like,
yeah,
there's
I mean,
like always
because
a slightly more ideal way you can grab and implement or challenge item.
yeah,
There's
and without going too crazy on it, it's like, man, you could uh, put a little bit more of your thumb on this side, a little less of your thumb, move forward, move back, fingers
mm,
together, fingers spread. Like you
planted
just,
straight. Like it's just so
yeah,
many different.
it really is. It is pretty wild. And you'll get feedback each time you do something like that,
Yeah.
to help you for the lift. So, is there any, I guess kind of talking about, not necessarily that was like a technical talk, but like, is there any blob training technique or any blob technique or tip that you could give that's not like too complicated but like relatively easy or maybe just something from your experience that would help
Um.
somebody maybe starting out or trying to get up to the next blob?
Yeah. A few different things. Get it chalking your blobs.
Yeah.
You want to get a nice like texture on there when it's smooth, it's going to be a lot harder to lift. Apply like tilt the blobs and apply flexion. Like when you're lifting them, it'll be easier to lift it up that way. If you can't lift the blob, uh, uh, do like an assisted lift with your other hand with like minimal assistance, where you can kind of like kind of finish the lockout without your offhand, and then kind of try to go down with it for negative. And added weight, magnet weights, or you've probably seen my bootlace and thread it through the little plates trick. That works for working up to a gold blob too. You put it on a smaller blob, do lift heavier. I'd say those things are probably my biggest tips. And then stretching your hands to get more flexible.
Yeah, I think that's a big
I've
one because
taken
I've never done that. I've
I
never
should take
really
a
done
video.
it.
I use my power rack to do a hand stretch. It'll look really dumb, but I'll probably like post a video of it. week or something.
Okay. Yeah. No, I kind of visualize it, but yeah, that is something. I'm not gonna say that I don't like stretch my hands or pop them, like pop my knuckles every now and then, but I've never really spent any time stretching my hand. Like other than maybe when I first got like Jedd's Lift the Blob book, maybe I was doing some of the thumb stretches and certain things for that. But if you ask me when's the last time I did that, I'd have to say like years ago.
It helps open up my hands, man. Like if I don't like my good blob days are I have to do that before and during my warm-ups, then it really
Okay.
helps me.
Well, and that's another thing too, though. I mean, kind of just mentioning that maybe, okay, pre-training blobs, you've done that, or even during the training session, that might be something you're doing. Because, yeah, I mean, I'm not thinking about stretching my hands or anything. I'm almost more like, okay, maybe texture or where the placement's going to be, but I'm not like really stretching. So, like I said, everybody's got a little bit of a different style or way that they do it. But I just wanted to offer people just something, training related, I guess.
Yeah, it's
Um,
worth trying anything. Everything works a little different for everyone, but it's worth trying out.
yeah. And then for uh we named everything you did in the past or stuff that you've already achieved. What are some of your future goals for Blobs? If you want to tell us. If you have
Oh,
anything that
yeah.
you're looking for or,
I'm really hoping once I get back up to 100%, I want to lift the Blob Father, and I want to clean Blobzilla.
okay.
I've gotten pretty close to both, so I think if I can get healthy and just really lock in for a bit, it might maybe by the end of the year that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Um, Other than that, I don't really have too many other like I have like combo goals like with like inch dumbbells and stuff like that, but just for
Mhm.
Blob specifically, I don't think I have many other goals.
Okay, if you could just name one combo lift that you're working towards, what would that be?
Uh,
Just to
I
mix it up.
want
Like I
to
said,
do
it still has to do with blobs,
I,
right?
I want to do the 30 kilogram haul blob and the 190 inch dumbbell, 190 pound inch dumbbell. Yeah,
Yeah, no, that'd be a killer feat. Yeah,
yeah. I hope
I'm
so.
I'm kind of in like similar territory. I tried doing a blob and bell combo and with one of the 200 Selenis and Blobzilla, and I could only get Blobzilla to break ground like 2 or 3 inches, and it just wouldn't stay. And I'm just like, man, and
It's
you only
tough.
get
It's
so
tough
many
to get
you
that
only get
big
so
block
many
weight.
reps.
Like it's so tough to get the big block weight in one hand and the inch in the other, and that's still
Yeah.
crazy to me. Like that you're lifting a 200 pound inch, and you're making it look easy these days too, man. It's crazy.
Well, but
I
like
still
we talked about earlier, though, man, that like time where you're putting stuff, you know what I mean? You only get like so much battery or so much energy to put towards certain things. And like for me, the default lately, with not really training as much as I would like, I kind of just revert to the bells. And if those go okay, well, maybe I go to something else. But my training is very like bell heavy. It's very similar to somebody that it's like, if they're killing grippers, but they're only training grippers, you're like, man, your grippers are looking awesome. But you only see them really doing grippers because they're kind of focused. Unintentionally, I'm kind of that way with the dumbbells right now. That's kind of been my default training. And then occasionally I'll branch off and do some other stuff. But yeah, so I mean, the bells are feeling really good, but that's just because I've spent the most time doing it. I think if I put the same effort towards bells as I did blobs. I mean, maybe Blobzilla would be a more regular lift for me and not this like kind of one-off thing that I'm trying to get back to. Who knows? But yeah, the only reason the bells are looking easy is because I've put most of my training time grip wise towards bells over almost everything else, and other things are secondary. But
and regardless, it's super impressive though.
I'm Man, I don't want to stray. I'll have to do another because I was going to start talking about
Okay.
dumbbells and stuff that we train. But yeah, I don't want to lose it because I'll go off the rails for another like 50 minutes. Um, so is there anything else that you would like to add? Maybe we kind of covered training, past lifts, all this stuff. I'm just trying to cover kind of all bases. Is there anything else that you would like to add in regards to blobs or maybe their place in grip? It's literally anything. If you don't have anything, that's fine too. Um, but yeah, if you kind of had any like last thoughts, last words, regarding
Um,
blob training, whatever.
yeah, I guess just have fun with it. Once you can lift like your goal block weight, try to like do other stuff with it. I've had so much fun just trying to push the limits what I can do with a certain block weight, and you get stronger while you're doing it too. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's just so many different things that you can do with blobs and challenge yourself and just have fun with it.
Yeah, right. This will be my last one based off of that, right? I know we talked about like standard deadlift, like okay, just whether it be deadlifting the blob, picking it up by the face. If you had to name one of those ways that you would like advance the lift, like a clean, a snatch, a curl, a transfer, what would be your favorite variation to do to increase difficulty? Is there one that you prefer over
Um,
the others, or that you feel like is more suited to you?
one that's like more difficult.
No, no, just more like one that's kind of your favorite, where you're like, man, if I had to pick between a clean, snatch, transfer, I'm doing transfers. Like
Yeah,
that's my favorite. I don't know.
probably the
Like,
transfer. It's hard because like the transfers are really hard. But I think at least the way I snatch because I have no like I don't really know how to snatch. Just kind of muscle up. Like I'd say that it requires more strength to snatch the blob the way I do than does for a transfer. A transfer is just somewhat cooler in my opinion. Also, the coordination aspect of it and the
mhm.
timing and um they kind of I guess they're about tied for me.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Maybe a
Well,
transfer into a snatch.
okay. Yeah. Well,
I I don't know if I could ever do that with a 50-pound blob, but I've done it with a
well,
55-pound hex, but that doesn't count.
yeah.
Well, it counts, but it doesn't count. It's like it's not in the same same realm as
That's
the
kind
next
of
gen. But
that's something that I don't want to like stray off, but yeah, we could almost go into that. Like, where do block weights? I mean, I know we're doing a blob episode, but like block weights are kind of a thing too. It's sort of like the I don't know, like the substitute until you get the real thing. That's how I look at it. It's kind of like if you have to bridge a gap or it's just cheaper, convenience when you're first building a collection and getting blobs. Okay, get these, block weights, these hexes, but it for some reason it's like I don't know, I had a big collection at one time and then I'm like it just all the hexes just dwindled and I'm like,
I
yeah,
like my hexes. They're different. They're like more fingertips and less thumb, and blobs are more thumb and less fingertip. But like
yeah.
they're definitely easier. Like 100 hex is easier than 100 York. But I don't know. I like both of them for different reasons. And there's days where my thumbs feel extra zapped, and I can hardly like lift anything on blobs, and I can move over to the hexes and still do pretty good because it's more of the fingertips.
Well, man,
But
I'm glad you kind of brought that up though. Like I'm glad we didn't totally just like throw block weights, like just to aside because it is another training component, or you could attack something a little bit different, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, this is the only thing. I mean, they have their benefits and their differences. So thanks for pointing that out from your personal experience because yeah, you do lift like a 120 hex. I mean, and those things. I mean people know, but for anybody that's maybe not thinking in this context, when we talk about York blobs and kind of these standardized known generations of blobs, there could be slight variances in the paint, sometimes even the slope slightly, maybe minor weight differences, but
not too too bad.
for the most part, they're pretty standardized. When you start talking the world of hexes and block weights, I've seen some 120s that weigh like 63 pounds and they're so tall. I can't even get, I mean, just the shape and the angle at the top. It's like I can't even get my fingertips on it. Like it's literally impossible.
Yeah, that's
And then
true.
another 120 might be like wider, but like more flat, and you can kind of get so hexes, there's not really a standard like, oh, if you lift this 120, you could lift all 120s. Whereas with
Yeah, that's
blobs, we
very
can kind
true.
of do so um yeah, hexes are kind of maybe not as prestigious to some of the old school people or whatever, but or as valuable. But yeah, they can definitely present a challenge and usually are cheaper and you can still,
Yeah,
you know,
they're cheaper, readily available.
so
But that's
um
true. They can vary a lot. There is Sorry, one quick story. There's
No, dude,
one
it is, yeah.
competition me and Jed went to, and there was a half hundred hex there, and neither of us, me or Jed, could even get it off the ground.
Wow.
Half
How long,
hundred hex.
how long ago was that?
Um, maybe 2020, maybe 2021. But it was just so slick. Like it would not hold any chalk, and it was just the most slick thing ever.
Yeah, that's crazy though to think that you guys didn't, even with chalk in the room or anything. It's crazy to think that you guys didn't pick up 100
I
hex,
couldn't
right?
lift it. And I was like ashamed. And then I saw Jed try to lift it. He couldn't. I was like, okay, I don't feel so bad anymore.
No, that's good. But yeah, that's why it can be tough to compare sometimes from, just watching other people's videos or what they lift, sometimes you gotta actually have hands on it. But yeah, man, no, thanks again for pointing out kind of some of the differences and what you notice, from fingertip to thumb, whether it be, the block weights or blobs and other stuff training wise. Thanks for adding that in because that's something that, I wasn't anticipating even covering and just kind of naturally came up. So, definitely appreciate that. I'm sure some of the listeners will, add that in there, mental, you know, I guess training mind, moving forward. And, yeah, any last words before we kind of wrap up at all?
Covered pretty much everything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, like Tim said, guys, try to make the training fun. Don't get so wild and put too much pressure on yourself that
Don't limit yourself. Don't limit
yeah,
yourself. Don't say that something's impossible.
yeah, branch off, find a new way to grab it, different way to train, anything. But yeah, no, Tim, you're a perfect example of that. And like I said, when I first got into lifting stuff, some of your videos were the first ones I watched. So as always, we've competed against each other, done a lot of feats and different things. But thanks for taking the time to do the show again and kind of give
Yeah, of
people
course.
your journey with blobs and some of your insight to lifting them and training them. So,
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on, man.
oh, no problem, man. With me right now is Jaland Worley, or as a lot of you will know, W Grip. Um, so, Jalen, I'm going to start off similar with most people when I'm doing this thing, but I'm just going to say, when's the first time you ever saw or heard of someone lifting a blob? Like, at what point were you just kind of sitting around and like the word blob, or you saw somebody pick up something and it was like that? You know what I mean? When was like the first time you even like knew it was a thing?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on here. It's cool to be a part of this episode. I've been waiting for you to do one like this for a while, so glad I can be a part.
Yeah.
Yeah. So blobs. Way back when I first like picked up grippers before I got serious about them. This was probably 2008, 2009-ish, somewhere back then. I'm so old now I can't even remember, but I got into grippers, like learning about them and all that. And I didn't really have an idea of how to train them, so I kind of stopped after a little bit. But during that time, I learned about blobs and the other grip implements at a high level, and I thought the blobs were really cool, but they're like super hard to find. And somehow I found one on Craigslist when I was living in Texas, and I think I bought it for like 100, $200, and it was a fat man. And I had it for a little while, but I had no idea how to lift it. I had no idea how to train it. I had no idea of technique. I didn't even know about using chalk. It's like how like disconnected I was from the grip community in the world. So I had no idea. And I'd play with it a little bit and try to figure it out. But like I was so busy with other stuff and I just kind of lost interest in it. Then I ended up moving away and I sold it away. But I probably could, if I'd held on to it now, it's like we're solid gold, right? I could get like $500 for a fat man now. But I didn't get $500 for it back then. But yeah, I got rid of it because I was moving and I was like, I don't want to move all this big chunk of steel or iron, around with me. And so I had one way back then, but I didn't know what I had. I didn't know what to do with it. But then years later, that changed.
Yeah.
I'm quite familiar with blobs now, and I got my first blob other than that one from you. I bought that 120 from you. It's been like 2 years now. Something like that.
Probably pretty close.
Yeah, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and yeah, I couldn't lift it, but I just started training with it, doing like finger assist and stuff, and it's probably like a month or two, and I finally got it up. And then I kind of figured out the progression. I figured out how to train them and would buy bigger blobs as they came up. And yeah, here we are now.
Yeah, man. And that, you kind of answered one of the things I was going to say, like, what was the first blob like you ever like ordered or like, you know, that you actually had, but you said you had a Fat Man. And then you mentioned the 120 Legacy that you initially had gotten from me. And I guess from that, and now everything you've done since, right? You've done a lot of big lifts, and we're going to talk about some of those. But if you had to pick, and it could be for whatever reason, it could be favorite to train on, favorite because of the look of it, whatever. It's your criteria. Doesn't matter. Basically, what is your favorite blob? If you could pick one.
Man, I just like my Fat Man. It's the OG. It's an iconic piece of equipment, and it's fun to lift. I'm lucky enough that I'm able to train with it. I work out with it. It's not just something I do for an occasional feed. It's something that's part of my training routine. And it's like, yeah, I lift crazy blobs, like big blobs and stuff, but like to be able to lift the Fat Man, like to go with your Richard Sorin episode, it's like you lift that thing like you've accomplished something, and I don't want all the talk about the bigger blobs and stuff that we might do. I don't want it overshadow like the original lift, because it's super important, and the history matters to me, and I think that's why that Batman blob is my favorite. I just like having one, and it's something that I use to get stronger and improve, and it's almost like a metaphor, right? I can use the OG, the icon, to like blaze new trails in this area of the sport. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that was going to kind of, I guess it's good because it kind of goes into my next question for you, which was, you're talking about kind of using it in your training, other than just doing feats with it or something. You're actually using it for like a training purpose. I was going to say, how do you feel training with blobs has helped your other lifts, or I guess how do you incorporate blobs to train for other things? Either one, but yeah, basically, just what kind of carryover into your other lifts do you see from blobs, or what would make blob training beneficial for other things? Because a lot of people think of it as like, oh, well, it's good for, in a way, we've heard the same thing, which some will dispute it, where it's like, grippers are only good for grippers. Other people will say, I disagree. I think they have more carryover than people think. So for blobs, a lot of people think, oh, it's such a wide pinch. It's, very hand size dependent. I think they kind of box it into kind of a limited thing, and they don't really think of it as like training or implementing in your training, or if I do this thing, it's going to help my other stuff. What are just some things that you've kind of noticed, like carryover wise, or ways that you've kind of, I guess, implemented it and seen benefits?
Yeah, it's a good question. Those things are true. They're not totally invalid about the hand size dependency, and some of the pinches are so wide. I struggle to come up with an immediate answer to something that it would carry over to, but I know that no matter which blob I'm training with, like my thumb is always fried. My thumb always is getting stronger. So I think for thumb training, blobs have a carryover to that. Would I suggest somebody lift blobs to build their thumb up? Not necessarily, but if you're interested in the blobs and you want to, start a progression and see where you end up, on the ladder. In addition to just getting stronger with a wider open hand pinch, that your thumb's going to get way stronger and it's going to grow. So I think it's beneficial for the thumb.
Yeah, no, like I said, I would agree too, just because the blob was one of the first feats I was kind of chasing, but I think it kind of helped fast track me a little bit to where, like you said, the thumb strength, it would kind of help, like on thick bar, I could kind of tell like, okay, my thumb's stronger, because you go from lifting regular barbells and stuff, and then you start jumping into like axles and inch dumbbells, and it's just a different feel if you haven't really lifted it before. But I think all the wide pinch I did with blobs helped. I mean, bouncing back in like on like plate pinches, even stuff like that. I think it just hitting the thumb hard definitely was one of the biggest things I noticed probably early on too.
For sure. Another thing I'll mention is I think when you train with blobs often and you really get the technique dialed in of stretching your webbing out around the blob, no matter how wide it is or how big your hands are, it does condition your webbing. So you'll have less tears. Like you might have more tears initially as you start to condition it and work on them. But the more you train them, you'll condition your webbing and you'll have less tears when you go back and say do like 3-inch Saxon. Because it's almost like every competition I've been in where 3-inch Saxon has been there, somebody's torn their webbing and they're bleeding everywhere. You know, I don't tear mine on the 3-inch. I tear mine on the hall blocks every workout. But when I go back to a 3-inch Saxon bar, you know, I don't when I have to lift the pinch block, the Iron Mind pinch block, you know, it's 3-inch also. I don't have to worry about webbing there because it's so conditioned and hardened from the blob lifting. It takes a lot for it to tear. So I think that's a good benefit of blobs as well.
No, that's a good point that I don't think not a lot of people would think of because, I mean, we see it with other lifts, right? I mean, regular compound lifts, whether it be like squat depth or just regular mobility for your entire body. It's like on certain things, if you just don't have the range of motion, it can be like detrimental to the lift, or it can almost impede your progress on the lift or something. Or you just might not be able to really perform outside of whatever limited range you're doing. So I think when you, like you said, you kind of stretch your hand out, even if you're not lifting the craziest blobs ever, but you're still putting your hand almost like we think of our body, you know, having to perform at an increased range of motion. Like I said, whether it's like a deeper squat, a wider lunge, or just something to where like, okay, your body's used to it. So kind of coming back in is easier. Like you said, I think it's kind of this, if you think of your hand as almost like the body, it's almost like, okay, well, you're almost working mobility just to get in certain positions or kind of stretch it. And then obviously like skin tears are one of the things we see a lot on pinch lifts. But if you're used to kind of going beyond that, then coming back in, you know, you're probably going to be a lot better off. Whereas if you don't touch anything that's like in that 3-inch pinch range, and you're like everything's like regular barbells or 2-inch pinch, 2.5 even, and then you go out to 3 and start trying to max out, you probably are going to tear, or your hand's just not going to be stretched like that. So yeah, no, that was a good one. You know what I mean? I think that's a good one for people to kind of think about as well. Now I'm going to jump into favorite blob lifts you've done yourself. Now I'll just add in, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be what others might deem the most impressive. It might just be like the first time you lifted a certain one and it was like, oh man, you know, like, hell yeah, I got that or something. Or it could be the shaw blob or something like that, right? But it's just your favorite, and like whatever reason it's your favorite, it's your reason, you know. It could be a deadlift, it could be a clean, it could be anything, but just kind of some of your favorite blob lifts that you've achieved yourself.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth mentioning just because there's only 2 of us that have lifted it. You know, being able to lift the shaw blob was big for me because it doesn't mean like I'm on par with Brian Shaw, but I've replicated a feat, you know, that he's done.
Yeah.
And he's much bigger than I am. You know, he's got a life of just strength and drive. And I'm kind of new to the competition aspect of this. And I'm new to the idea of like building a legacy and then driving a sport forward. You know, he and I were like almost total opposites. You know, he does this for a living. I'm just a guy that does this in his basement. So to be able, for someone like me, to do something like that, that's pretty fucking cool, you know. So I will mention that, but I you know, my favorite, there's 2 that come to mind immediately, and the one I'll mention first because there's less to talk about with it. I was able to reverse lift the 120 that I bought from you with my thumb on the round side.
Yeah,
that was hard, man. That was harder than the shaw block. Like
I was gonna say, people don't know unless they get. I mean, because everybody lifts legacies generally like flat side for your thumb and your fingers go over
Mhm.
the rounded side. But yeah, reverse lifting legacies will humble about anybody because you'll think like, oh
Yeah,
man, like I could probably do a half 110, and then you go down to grab it, and it's like your thumb is like pointing like sideways. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's
and
a tough
there's
lift.
no wrist, there's no flexion. You're not going to be able to do that, right? Because you can't get a good bite on it. It's just raw pinch power, man, and your thumb is in a horrible position. So
Yeah. And if that blob is slick too, then it's like you might have to spend a little time kind of screwing around with the texture because
Mhm.
that, I mean, once it slips, it slips. Cause I mean, like I said, it's rounded on your thumb. You can't even like get down to really,
Yeah.
I guess, like, you know, kind of close it off or even control it. It's
Mhm.
kind of like an outward pinch, almost like an ingot or something. You know what I mean? But
Yeah,
like, yeah, kind of
yeah,
sharper.
it's a weird one for sure. But when I did that, I think the videos on my YouTube, I think the most excited that I've gotten after a lift. Like I don't really shout and scream and jump up and down and stuff. No, that's not my personality. But I was shocked that I got that blob up when I lifted like that. And in the video, I had like this genuine reaction, just like, "Holy shit! How did I even do that?" You know,
Yeah.
I haven't had that reaction on really anything else that I've done. So that one stood out to me. But yeah, if you have a legacy, no matter what size, try to lift it with your thumb on the round side, and you'll get an idea of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Um,
It'll, even the small ones, the smaller blob. I mean, like I said, that's a sort of a opinion or, you know, I guess, you know, depends on who you are, but, uh, I'm trying to think. I don't want to be wrong here, but I mean, doing a 120 reverse like that, I don't know that I've seen anybody else do that. I know I saw Brian do like Blobzilla, you know, reverse, but once again, we're talking about kind of an outlier of outliers.
mhm,
Um, but other people in the community of grip, I don't really know. And I would say, like, for
mhm,
me, somebody who the biggest blob I've lifted is a Blobzilla. Um, I would say reverse lifting, I probably am closer to like a 105, 110. You know, like it's
mhm.
quite a ways down from where I would be regularly. So I don't know if that's like the same comparison for anybody else, but yeah, expect to have a pretty big drop off
Mhm.
just by changing it, or just changing the orientation of the blob.
Right. And then as they, the legacies, they have a friendlier shape, but as they get wider, the reverse lift gets even harder than the regular pitch because the width
Okay.
is it yeah, just try it. If you have one, try it and report back to us and let us know how it went. Because
Yeah.
I'd like to see more people try to lift them that way and
Yeah.
see what's good, what's truly good with that. But anyway, I want to touch on the other lift.
Yeah. 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 Let's do it.
My favorite lift feat that I've done with the blob was Ben Helms talked me into trying the cycle. And I was able to cycle my fat man. And to me, that's my favorite because it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like that's the iconic blob, you know,
Mhm.
and to be able to just have complete mastery of it and demonstrate that, that's cool to me. That means a lot to me to be able to do that. Could I do the blob cycle with some other blobs? Yeah, I could probably do it with I have a red pill. It's painted blue, but I could probably
Yeah.
cycle that
From
one.
Ben.
Yeah,
Is that from
yeah, I got
Ben?
that. Most of my blobs I got from Ben, by the way. Um, he was done with them. He sent them to me. I mean, I bought them,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, he helped me build my collection. But yeah, I mean, I could cycle some other blobs, but I don't feel like the cycle means as much unless you do it with, the OG blob. That if you lift it, you're a hell of a man. That's how I look at
Yeah,
it.
and man, with the slopes on that as well, you know, kind of having the slopes on both sides, there is, I think, a slight variance in the
Mhm.
slopes for a fat man because you can kind of, you know, reverse lift it as well, kind of like the legacies, but it's not as
Yeah.
like the slope isn't as crazy. There's not a big difference. I mean, if you lift them, you can tell, but like it's
Mhm.
no comparison to like how wild the legacies get. Um, but with that slope kind of being on both sides, you don't get the benefit of having that like flat spot of a legacy where you can kind of use a little bit more wrist flexion. So when you're getting into things like cleaning and snatching them or even curling them, it becomes a different ball game as well. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that it's a kind of a milestone. Obviously, it's the original feat, like we've talked about, but to do the cycle with it is kind of like the whole. I don't know, like the whole deal. It's a lot tougher than people think. We get some of these people, um, and I'm talking about mainly just people not involved in the sport or outsiders looking in, and oh, it's just 50 some pounds. Like I could do that. I pick that up all the time here and there, and it's like not like this. You don't. And then when you see somebody like you, somebody that does like a cycle with one, you're like, there's a difference between just picking the thing up, which are some people's life goal is just to pick it up. Then you think about guys that can like clean it and have that control, curl it and not have their wrist just completely snap down, snatch it, with no like press out up top, just like straight, just generate that much force, raw power from the ground in that position. So I think that's one of the cooler feats in general. So I mean, I would agree. I mean, you doing that would probably be one. If I was to look at everything you did, that'd be one of them that would have to be up there because there's not a lot of people, that have really given it a shot. But then also, even if they did, there's not a lot of people that are ever going to make that list, I guess.
Yeah, it's like each one of those feats is tough on its own, but then to do them continuously, it's insane. And especially the snatch. The snatch is the hardest. And then you got to curl it after that. Like, it's just.
Yeah. And sometimes people, curling like a plate curl or a blob, it's a whole different position and feel. Because there's certain guys that are really good at, curling blobs and their plate curl's not really as good. And then there's other people that have really good plate curl, but they just can't, in that position, it just changes everything for them. And they really don't curl blobs like the same that they would plate curl. So I don't know. There's a lot of variables and kind of, I guess, unique stuff for each individual doing it. But yeah, those lifts just added a level of difficulty that unless people are in the room seeing it or doing it and trying it hands on, it almost it's not going to really hit home through a screen, no matter how much we kind of try. So no, man, I think those are those are some pretty cool ones. I wasn't sure. I mean, obviously, like I said, Shaw Blob is like, okay, that's kind of the no-brainer, but some of these other things, whether it be taking something like the original feat, doing the cycle because that adds a level of difficulty, or switching a legacy around, there's more ways to train with this stuff than a lot of people give credit. And I think that's something you're highlighting too with the choices you made.
Yeah, you could always make it more difficult. That's, and I think that's something we can wrap up with when we're done talking about the other topics. But it's like, where do we go from here? There's always another level of difficulty. So we can touch on that later. But you're right.
Yeah.
There's always ways to mix it up and change things up.
Okay, so now we talked about blob lifts, right, that you've pulled off. This is going to involve other people. So basically, I just want to know who are other blob lifters that you enjoy watching their training or lifts of theirs that you like to see. Just other lifters that are kind of in the same lane as you, or you're in the same lane as them, and you can kind of watch their training and like what they do, or it could just be big lifts, it could be creative lifts, whatever. Just somebody else that you watch.
I mean, I respect anyone who takes the time to actually train these things. They're brutal, man. They'll mess you up and humble you and frustrate you. But somebody I just admire and respect just because he's a good friend, and he's probably the best person I know, and it's not an exaggeration. Tim Butler. He is so creative and he's so strong, and he has a mind like to come up with just these insane combo ideas and multi-step combos that he's working on now. Like he's constantly pushing it. And maybe he can't lift the biggest ones, but just his ability to come up with these ideas and then to execute on them, like it blows my mind to watch him do what he does. And he's cleaning stuff with it face picked, and then he's got an inch dump. It's almost like you're watching like a circus act, like an old time strongman act or something. It's crazy to watch him do this thing.
That's it's funny you mentioned like an act like that. And I think I don't know, and I don't want to drive people crazy with some old time debate. I'm not the most studied up on it, but with like the inch dumbbell. There's a lot of people, oh, Thomas Inch did XYZ. He cleaned it, he pressed it. It was nothing for him. He's a monster. Other people, I don't even think he lifted it. It's like, so we have that. So I'm not trying to get into comparisons or anything like that, but let's just pretend that we had a time machine and we could shoot Tim Butler back in time and have him perform all the stuff that he's done now. I feel like they'd be having books and statues about him, right?
Exactly. Yeah, he would be an icon of just strength, not even grip, just strength in general.
Yeah.
Send him back in time 150 years and give him a deck of cards. And
that alone.
Yeah, he'd be world famous. He'd be a millionaire. He'd be a legend. I mean, he's already legendary, but he would.
Yeah.
And I think some of the stuff he's doing now, with the internet and everything, like, as long as grip keeps going and there's an interest and it keeps growing, which is what we try to do and drive this forward, his stuff's going to stand the test of time forever.
Yeah,
like no one's able to do a lot of the stuff he's able to do.
No, yeah, and I don't want to stray too much off Blobs, but you mentioned cards. I mean, I think I've seen Tim. I don't want to be wrong, but I feel like he's like took 2 decks of cards together and like duct taped them and just tore through them. Like I don't know. I mean, Tim has so many card videos and things he's done that it's. I mean, it's not really even human, but But yeah, I feel like it's like that level of stuff, where somebody's like, hey, I want to tear a deck of cards. And Tim's like, okay, I'm going to like put gloves on and like triple the deck and tape it. And then I'm going to just rip through it the same. And you're like,
yeah,
it's wild. So yeah, no, Tim, that's a good choice. And Tim's been doing it longer than people think too.
Yeah. And then, just another mention here, Ben Helms, he's creative too. And I appreciate Ben because, and if you know Ben and you talk to Ben will always try to push you and give you ideas. And like, I lifted the Hall 30 out the box, and I think I got a message from him. It's like, now clean it. It's like, dude, can you just not be happy for me? I call him the janitor because it's like he just wants me to clean everything. He wants everything clean. But yeah, Ben's great. He's also creative, and like I said, he turned me on to the cycle, being able to do that with the Fat Man, and I think he's done it with the Fat Man and Blobs in each hand, if I can recall.
Two Fat Mans at the same time. He did a cycle both sides, which any of us that do combo lifts or anybody that's tried them understands how hard just cleaning or snatching one blob would be. I don't care if you just even hold a random dumbbell. Anytime you just add something to that other hand, it starts to magnify. And then especially if it's like, oh no, you have to have like equal, 2 Fat Mans and then run through like a double clean, a double snatch, a double curl. It's freakish. That's actually, that you brought that up. That's almost probably one of my like all-time, like, if I could put like one of the craziest blob lifts I've ever seen or that's been done, that has to be one of them. Just like you said, it's that mastery of all the different things and movements, but I mean, two-handed.
Yeah, it's just it's strength and coordination and pressure, right? Of doing it, in front of the camera or for people or whatever. So yeah, it's insane that he was able to do that.
Now, I might kind of blend these in a little bit, somewhat, but what I was going to ask you was, in your opinion, basically, what is the greatest blob-related feat, like all time in grip, or your favorite? Like I said, you could say something like, "Oh, this was the greatest blob lift ever done because this," or you could just say, "Hey, I like this one because this dude's intensity," or "This video just was what I mean." There's a lot of room to kind of play with there, but just some of the greatest blob lifts that you can think of, maybe that stand out a little bit to you.
Yeah. I'm going to answer this in a way that only, I guess, like my personality. Right? The greatest blob feat is yet to be done because there's still blobs to be lifted. We're not done yet. We got stuff to do. Now, if you ask me to this point, what's the greatest blob lift? I don't know, man. It's tough. There's just, because we've talked about ones that require just insane coordination, like the two-handed cycle, or
Mhm.
these combo feats, or just the sheer size of these blobs. It's tough for me to say, man, and I don't want to name one of my own because that just sounds egotistical, but I've lifted the Shaw and the Blob Father together in a combo.
Yeah, good combo lift, yeah.
And locked it out, and no one's done that, and I think any lift where there's only one or two or three people, it's up there. It's hard to say just one,
Yeah.
There's a guy, Loisman, he's in Europe. He just lifted the Hall 30.
Yes.
And he's a smaller guy. He's not
Leaner,
tiny.
yeah.
I'm not trying to say like he's a little guy, but
yeah.
I'm a big dude, and I'm weighing like 275, 280 now, depending on the day. But to see guys much smaller than me lifting a Hall 30, that's crazy. And
he did that in the combo lift too, right?
Mm-hmm.
He comboed it with an inch dumbbell. I'd have to go back and check Alex Gia's list for that, but I remember seeing that lift being put on that list when he lifted it. But yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. We're talking like 66, 67 pounds almost, or whatever it comes out to. I mean, depending on maybe the blob, but yeah, that's any shape is hard to do, let alone, I mean, kind of the width of, with that. So no, that's a very impressive lift. I remember seeing that thinking like, man, really? Like that was the 30? Like, you sure it wasn't the 24, but yeah, he's a real strong guy. I think he actually changed his name on Instagram.
He's
like
the Blockman or something like
yeah,
that.
it used to be like Blockman, like with the C.
Yeah.
And then it changed that to a B, so Blobman after that kind of, But yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about, and I know the lift. So
yeah. And then of course, you got to mention, like I said, there's like any lift, there's like one person's done it. You're gonna have Thomas on the show for this episode. Thomas's facelift of the Blobzilla has to be up there. Because if you haven't been in the presence of a Blobzilla, like, it's called Blobzilla for a reason. Yeah, there's blobs bigger than it, but it's hard enough to lift normal. Then to lift it from the face is, I mean, it's a hand size thing, but
still gotta be strong.
Dude, I mean, to have the nerve to even try that, and then the nerve to stick with it, to pull it off.
Yeah, and when you think about facelifting, right? It's like, okay, he's got big hands and he does a 130.
Yep.
Like, okay, well then let's just scale that to whatever so and so's hands are. Okay, go do it with a 110. Like it almost doesn't get easy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, regardless if that blob weight wise, size wise is scaled to your hand, in some linear fashion or something, it almost doesn't matter because like strong is strong at the end of the day. And yeah, I mean, it requires a big hand to do that blob, but I can promise you this, we could take like a giant poll of, people and round them up, get 500 people that have a hand that can do it and then put them in the room and see if they can, and probably not walking away with anybody pulling it off. So, I mean, it's more than just having the hand. You got to be strong too.
Like, okay, you were dealt the genetic gift, but do you have the drive? Do you have the interest? Do you have the equipment? Do you have the access to it? It's all those factors rolled into one person. It's fascinating, like, because this is such a niche sport, right? Like, in general, and then blobs are even another level of it's like obscurity, right? So to find people who have the genetic potential and the interest and the drive and the ability to procure the equipment, it's pretty cool to see all that line up. And it's one of the things that I think about a lot, like how many people are out there just lurking who don't have all those factors together and will never see some of the craziest shit that you can imagine, right? So that's why I try to like grow the sport and get people interested, because we're not the only ones out there. There's got to be a lot more.
Need
monsters.
to go hit up all the NBA, all the former NBA players and NFL linemen, and just see what happens.
For sure.
But
one more thing about this question. The greatest lift, to date. I think all the guys you're going to have on the show for this one, we all have a lift that could be considered that.
Yeah.
It's hard to pin it down to one because there's such variation with blobs. It's hard to say just one because I saw the other day Tim did a facelift transfer of I think it was a fat man. Like
Yeah.
he transferred it by the face. Like how?
Yeah.
Like to be able to toss it and catch it with the blob even being oriented to be able to do it. And it's hard enough to get a bite this way. To do it in midair, no one else is going to do that.
Yeah.
No one else is going to have the nerve to try it.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
So,
Well, yeah, Tim, and Tim doesn't have gigantic hands, but he's got pretty good flexibility and and everything. But he does the dude. It's not like he's just one of these like giant hand people. But it's interesting that he's sort of at the top of like facelifts and kind of doing all that, and it's almost like a thing that he. I don't want to say he's the first person that did it or started it, but
right.
I mean, he definitely kind of made it popular, or that's kind of the lane that he like carved out. Where I mean, if somebody's picking a blob up by the face, it's probably because they watched something Tim did. I mean, I would just guess. I mean,
yeah, no, that's valid, and then we have to mention Jedd, right? He's, we were talking before the show started. You mentioned kind of like if there was a torchbearer, a passing of the torch from Richard to somebody, it has to be Jedd, right? So Jedd kept it going. Jedd drove the interest. Jedd pushed the limit, and Jedd's lifted some of the biggest ones out there way before anybody else was even messing to that level. Yeah. So I think those lifts and that legacy of Jedd's, that's up there with some of the greatest feats as well. So there's so many strong people. It's amazing just like see what we've done as a small group.
Yeah, for sure. And I think those are really good points. So to kind of, I guess, start to close out a little bit, future goals that you have for Blobs. We kind of talked about what you did. We've talked about what some other people have done that you kind of, people that you've watched lift that are kind of inspiring stuff they've done. What are your kind of future goals as it stands now? Hall 35. Okay. Yep.
It's not too far off.
Have you broke ground without any assistance?
Yeah, I have. Okay. This thing is so tall.
Oh yeah.
It's so tall. It presents a lot of challenges that the other blobs don't. It's completely unique to any because I have all the biggest ones. I have all the biggest blobs. This thing's a whole different animal. So this is definitely something I've been grinding away at. It's taken much longer than I thought it was going to, just because of the sheer size and shape of this thing. It's a unique challenge in itself. So I don't want to say it's imminent, but I'm close. I see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Okay.
And so, nobody's lifted this one, and I really want something I can kind of call unique to my own. So that's driving me to keep working on this thing. There's probably 2 other people who have a shot at it pretty soon. I don't know where they're at in their training or anything, but we'll see. I don't think it's a race, but I'm working.
But in a way, guys are training, and everybody kind of wants to do that next thing. So I mean, it'd be cool to be first, regardless.
Yeah, but I mean, even if I'm not, it's to be able to even play with this thing blows my mind.
Now, this is a question because we also could talk about taking other things, whether it be like a clean, a snatch, for the more, I guess we'll say sub-maximal blobs. You can always increase the difficulty. We talked about that a little bit as well. Just kind of sticking with max, kind of straight deadlifts. It's tough to do because you have to have 2 of them. Are you on the hunt for another 150 to do a double shaw lift? Is that something that you would think is possible in the works, or what would that look like, or what are you thinking about that?
Yeah, that's one I want to do for sure. David Reynolds, the guy up
out like Rhode Island.
Yeah.
Or sorry, some of the lifters, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, I'll kind of mix up where they're from, but yeah, you're right.
I got the one I have now. I got from him, the Shaw Blob. He has another, and he told me when I was ready, he would gladly work it out with me to send his for me to do a combo with 2 of them. And like I said, I'm focused on the 35 now, but I still train my left hand. My left hand's almost there. You know, I'm able to do like 4 or 5 reps with the Blob Father on it. So, you know, it's coming. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I also want to clean the Shaw. You know, if I rested for like a week, I could probably do it now, but I'm focused on the whole 35 right now. I just did a clean with the 30, so that was cool. I don't think anybody's done that. So yeah, I mean, kind of running out
only
of
person,
what's that?
maybe Ben Hall 30 clean.
I can't remember if
I was gonna say
he has.
I,
His is also
there's
shaped differently too. He has like the original.
it's more of like a oval.
Yeah, so I don't know if that makes it harder or easier. I don't know.
It'd be tough to say. Right.
I think Ben has cleaned it. I just
that's the only name that comes to mind when it comes to that, because like as far as like people that like Ben's one of those people that like once he kind of like maxed out on blobs, he could deadlift. It's like he could still do all the other stuff too, like clean Blobzilla or something. You know what I mean? It's like the hand size would start to get to him eventually for some of the real big ones. But if you stayed under a certain level, it's like he would just be launching them. This is just a bonus side note. I don't want to run too long over your kind of time frame that you kind of whatever we set. But okay, is you talked about your blob father. Do you know where it came from? This is just for fun. This is just a bonus.
I got it from Ben, but I don't know who had it before that.
Okay, I had it before, and I picked it up on a trip out to Chaz's via Tim Butler. So I think Tim Butler got it from Nate Browse. So that's where that thing kind of traveled. I think it was something from like Nate Browse to Tim, or Tim secured it, and either he had it or Tim got it for me when Nate was selling it. But Tim was in on the deal that got it to me somehow via Tim or Nate, you know, and then I think I got to a point where I was just like, I don't think I can even get my hands on it. Yeah, Ben, take it, do something with it. And then I don't know if he just got frustrated or impatient with it, but then I think he dished it off to you. So you brought up Tim earlier, but yeah, Tim's the only reason that probably, I don't know, made it to you via us, I guess, at some point. But yeah, Tim's always around.
Yeah, I wonder, like, you know, you pick up a used gripper, or you pick up some used thing off a grip board or whatever, and it's like, what's the lineage on all this stuff? Like, if you could know, it'd probably blow your mind who played with it, even if it was for a short time. So
especially if it's
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it just came to my mind because whenever I see you lift it, I'm like, okay, I remember when I had that thing sitting in the garage for about a year and it never moved. but yeah, pretty sure Nate Browse had it, and like I said, I don't know if Tim bought it from him and held on to it for a while, or Tim might have just been the contact that got me in touch to get it, and then I picked it up when I went up that way. But yeah, and then Ben to you. So no, man, that's a cool one. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of, I guess, wrap up with or sort of close with? I know you kind of made mention of maybe some earlier in the talk you were going to kind of follow up with towards the end.
Yeah, but, just kind of talking about like driving things forward, you know, and I made a comment about, you know, the greatest blob feat has yet to be done because there's still blobs that haven't been lifted, or a blob that hasn't been lifted. That's really what motivates me, man. And I'd like, if there's one person who watches this, takes something away from at least my interview, it's that the sample size of who's done this stuff is small, right? So one, I want to inspire people to pick these things up and really try and see how far you can take it. Because it's fun, man. Like, I enjoy it. It's one of my favorite things to do. And I don't even feel like I'm working out. It's just like the challenge for the day. And I come down here, like I'm training blobs tomorrow, and I come downstairs and I'm pumped. I'm excited every time when I know it's blob day. So, you know, I'd like more people to have that mentality with them. And the more people we get training with these things, we're going to find those outliers, the freaks and the monsters, and we're going to drive this forward. And what I like most about what I've done with the Blob is that I don't think I'll ever, even if I lift this 35 and I'm the only one who's done it, I'm still not going to say like I'm the greatest or I'm the best or whatever. It's just I was able to drive things forward and redefine what is good for the next generation of people to come along and pick up where we leave it off. And in 20 years, I want people to be lifting Hall 45. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a bit of a hyperbole, but
Yeah, no, but
if we're the human limit, that's sad. You know what I mean? Like there's got to be.
Well, yeah, I mean,
more
like,
levels to this.
there's just so many people in the
sad.
world.
I'm being kind of silly, but
but I mean, you think about how big the world is and everybody, I mean, that's out there. Like you said, the sample size is small. So if people were to look at this small sample size that we have and what they've been able to achieve, I think it would do one of two things. One, it would either, like you said, you might find these freaks and realize, like, man, with a bigger sample size, some of those lifts don't really hold up as well over time. Or it might be kind of like you said about Tim Butler's lifts, where maybe we get that bigger sample size and it doesn't really shift what was possible. And we realize, damn, some of our lifts were actually pretty damn good and they held up, So I think either way, it's a positive because it's either going to evolve one way or the other. But I think it would also kind of validate some of these lifts that, some of us have done, because I do believe that across different weight classes or hand sizes or for what these objects are, I do think that if we got bigger sample sizes and people trained it and did whatever, I think some of the top end guys are still going to be top end guys.
Yeah, that's a good point. Either we'll push it forward or we will find, that we are close to what's possible.
But then that'll still have everybody kind of, wanting to move. I don't know, move up to the next thing.
The people that I want to associate with, the people that I like to be friends with, the people that I like to talk to, they're the people who look at something and it might be defined as like, this is where this is at. I want to be around the people and I want to inspire the people and I want to be associated with the people who look at that and say, no, that's not it. That's not the limit. Let's go. I'm going to find it. That's how I operate. That's why I've spent the last 6 months killing myself trying to figure out how to lift this Hall 35, because I've thought I've been close and I knew what I need to do now, and it's just like it's a bigger puzzle than I thought, because I put one piece in, it's like, well, shoot, now there's this problem that I have to solve with the height, and I'm lucky that my brain works that way, and I'm just kind of relentless, and once I get a hold of something, I don't stop until I figure it out. But those are the people that I like to associate with and hope that I can inspire to pick things up, where I leave it off, where Jedd leaves it, where Tim leaves it, all of us who do this stuff. Just keep pushing the envelope and see what we're really capable of. I talked to Nathan Hall about, if I lift this 35, is he interested in casting a 40? Because I do think the human limit is probably somewhere between the 35 and the 40. I'd made a comment about I want to see people lifting 45s earlier. I don't know about that, but I think the limit's probably around 40. But you never know. If we get to where there's tens of thousands of people doing this.
Yeah. Or you give it another 20, 30 years, you give it another couple of decades, you don't know. Yeah. It might be like, oh, well, I'm joking, but everybody warms up with 30s now. Like,
exactly.
I know that won't be the case, but you get what I mean. Like,
that's the concept I'm trying to, elucidate here, is that, I want to help redefine what's good. And, I feel like I've started doing that, but there's still work to do. And I'm just very, very thankful for the people in this community, like the guys you're going to have on this show, all the people who came before me. I mentioned earlier, like, the history is a big deal. Like, I like lifting and I like accomplishing the feats, but I care about the history of the Blob. And your episode you did with Richard Sorin was awesome. And, I think you're going to put clips of that mixed in with this episode.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to do something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like I never met the guy, but I wish I could have. Because I would have liked for him to see what I was able to do with, kind of what he created.
No, makes sense to me.
Yeah, but I met his son. I haven't met his son, but I've talked to his son. I know Bert kind of well. He's sponsoring my competition in July that I'm running for the Rocky Mountain Regional Championship. And so at least for Bert to see what I've done and give me comments about, hey, my dad would have loved that.
Yeah,
that's some of the best feedback that I can get. So I appreciate you putting this together. This is the lift that means a lot to me. So to be a part of this is cool. And I can't wait to see what the other guys have to say about, their experience.
No, man, it's going to be an interesting roster.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure.
But hey, man, thanks for taking the time and just giving us your perspective on some of your lifts and everything else. And best of luck on the Hall 35. And whenever that falls, we got to try to get a double shaw lift going for the double shaw blob or something. I mean, why not? So
it'll happen. And I'm training blobs tomorrow, so maybe we can add a clip before you publish this episode of the 35 coming up. I don't know.
Yeah, we can see. I mean, if you end up hitting it, shoot it my way.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. And until then, like I said, best of luck in training, and thanks again for taking the time.
Yeah, no worries, man. It's always great to do this with you. So anytime.
All right, so continuing the blob talk here for this episode. Speaking to several people that are kind of specialists in blobs or just all around very strong grip guys. Somebody I haven't had on the show yet, Thomas Larsen from Norway. So welcome to the show, Thomas.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh man, thanks for doing it. This is, like I said, it's kind of an episode or like a blob kind of special. So we're focused on some, keying in on some of the better blob lifters or people that have a history lifting blobs. And just kind of getting their take on things and I guess their history or, when you found out about blobs and training and stuff like that. So I guess the first thing I'd ask is what exactly is like the first time you can remember that like you heard about a blob or, you saw a video and, you're like, oh man, I'm going to try that or you're at the gym one day and saw one. What was the first time you heard about a blob or saw one?
Well, in Norway, there was no blobs, I think. So I think the first time I saw a blob was in Russia at the WAA, World Arm Lifting Association, I think it's called.
Okay. Yeah.
They have the Silarukov equipment.
That's what I was going to ask you if it was a Silarukov one, because I know I've seen you, I think you have some in your collection, right?
Yeah, I have one of those.
Because I've always kind of wanted one, but I've never really been able to get them, and I don't think they really make them anymore and shipping and stuff.
I think they still make them, but
okay.
It's kind of tricky to get them right now, I guess.
Yeah, but I always thought they were cool because they're painted blue and everything, So, yeah. But that's cool that you got one. So you said that was in Russia?
Yeah.
You remember about what year it was?
2016 and 2017. I was there 2 years in a row.
Okay. Yeah.
So. Yeah, they had a 19 and a 21 and a 24 kilo.
Yeah, so they're pretty heavy blobs, really. I mean, depending on the person, but especially first time seeing it, you start getting over 50 pounds or 24 kilos or something, getting up there. So from that, what, I guess, how did that go? It was in a competition?
No, I think they were just laying around. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
and did that? I'm sorry, I was gonna say, did that come pretty easy to you, picking those up the first time, or
no? Because they were not they didn't have any magnesium or anything on them, so they were kind of slippery. So I think I was the only one who lifted the 24 kilo blob.
But could you kind of tell maybe from the beginning, hey, this is something I might be good at, or it was kind of a good challenge?
Yeah, I always feel like I was good at the bigger stuff, wider stuff. So, but in 2017 there was more people that lifted the 24 kilo blob. But in 2016 I think it was only me.
Okay, yeah, and so from there, I guess, being exposed to it and seeing it, what was kind of the first one that you purchased, or what's the first one that you got from somebody
I
for
think it
training?
was some machine-made blob from, I think it was someone from Ukraine, maybe the crab was Anton Namtsev or something.
Yeah, I might not be good
Something
at
like
pronouncing the
that.
name, but yeah,
Yeah,
I think I know what you mean.
I think maybe it was from him, I'm not quite sure, but it's like a 22.5 kilo blob. It's
Okay.
called a Robo Blob.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I remember, I think Jedd had something similar where they had like machine blobs that were kind of, yeah, they people call them Robo Blob or something, just because the
Yeah,
way they kind of looked and everything.
yeah.
And then, now I guess out of like all of the years of lifting them and I guess, maybe chasing some different feats, what's one of the blobs that you have that kind of stands out as like kind of your favorite? Or like which one do you like training with the most, or which one do you think looks the coolest? It's like I said, totally up to you, whatever you pick for that.
Yeah, I still like the Blobzilla the most, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Was it pretty easy getting your hands on that? Like getting it
Yeah,
shipped and everything?
it
Or,
fits my hand pretty well, and it's the I don't have any smaller York blobs,
okay.
so it's like I have like the 140 and the 150 as well, but I can't do that much feats with those. So
Is that something you're kind of going to be training towards, you think, lifting those
yeah,
at some point?
at least like the 140, I have gotten it off the floor a couple of times.
Yeah. I would say with some more training, I mean, I think that's definitely doable with, I mean,
Yeah,
I've been seeing you lift some stuff for quite a while, but yeah, I think on the right day you could probably get it now. I
yeah,
mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what you're feeling when you're training, but yeah, I would guess it's not
it's
far
just
off.
it's just hard to like focus on one thing at a time. I have to like do a lot of stuff. So
And
I
then
think it's
one of the other things I was going to add in was through training blobs. I asked the other guys this too, and everything is like if if you've been training blobs or it was a part of your training program or you weren't doing them and then you added them in, um, is there any type of carryover that you feel like blobs have helped your other lifts? Like when I'm doing blobs, my other lift goes up or this gets stronger. I mean, like I said, it's common to say, oh, well, like thumb and wrist because you're maybe using some flexion, and then thumb is obviously always going to be a thing with pinch. But I didn't know if there was anything from your personal training that that you could note, like, oh man, my Saxon went up, or man, when I'm doing blobs too much, my Saxon goes down. I typically, I guess I'm asking for like a positive benefit, but it could be
yeah.
anything you've noticed when training them, I guess. But yeah.
Usually I use blobs for feeds,
Hmm.
so I don't like train them that much. Kind of, it's more like I do more like pinch blocks and maybe some plates and stuff for pinch, more like pinch training.
Yeah.
But I think like every or the blob work is also carry over to the other pinch lifts.
Yeah. I think most
But
people
it's yeah,
get caught up on like how, like diameter, or not, I say diameter, I guess the width when we're talking pinch. People get caught up
yeah,
on that sometimes, but I think that, my opinion, I guess, but I don't get so caught up in because everybody's so different. Everybody's hands are different. The objects are different. But I just think that pinch carries over to pinch. I think
yeah,
some people get too caught up trying to like, well, this carries over to that. That doesn't carry over the other way. It's like, I think all pinch carries over to pinch. It just how
yeah.
much how much does it carry over could vary. But yeah, like I said, I was just curious. I didn't know if there's a time when your blobs were really good or I don't know, or what are some lifts, I guess. I know you're talking about training with plates and stuff like that. Is there anything that you've done in your training that you feel like helped achieve like certain blob lifts? Other training you did that made your blob stronger?
Maybe Saxon bar, maybe the most, because it's more similar with.
Yeah,
More like
I can see that. Yeah. And then from there, like I said, I'm kind of just running down some of these questions here.
yeah.
I guess then we talk about using the blobs for feats, and that's where everybody can kind of freestyle, and that you're not really boxed into like a competition standard. You can kind of do what you want.
Yeah.
And like pretty much everybody that's going to be interviewed for this, you've pulled off some really awesome blob lifts throughout your time in grip. So, what lifts have you done that you feel like are kind of your favorite ones? Or like, I guess the biggest ones, the best ones, but like your favorite, what are some of the ones that you kind of had to work for, or I guess some of the more notable ones?
Yeah. Well, way back it was like trying to do stuff with a 24 kilo Silarico blob. So the best feats with that one is like air transfer.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think I have. No, I did one air transfer facelift with the Rovo blob, the 22.5 kilo blob.
Yeah.
That's well, you have it has to kind of hit your hand kind of perfect, but other than that, it's not that hard, I
Yeah.
think. But I know I also did some like facelift cleans or regular cleans and stuff like that, or snatches with that blob. But like I think I'm mostly known for the Blobzilla facelift.
Yeah.
But like
That
that's
was one we talked about a little bit, but yeah, it's yeah, I mean, like, and we've talked about it briefly, but like, it's like, yeah, you have to have the hand for it in general, but then like, how hard was it? I mean, did you just kind of do it right away when you got it, or did it take some practice and kind of like messing with the grip and training it a little
yeah.
bit?
Yeah, first time when I got the blob, I was like just feeling it, and I was thinking like, nah, I don't think this will be possible.
Mhm.
But then I saw like the lift from or when Brian Shaw tried it, and he couldn't do it, and then I was like, yeah, well, I just have to try it. And I think it took me like 2 or 3 weeks from the first time I tried it to the full lift.
Okay, so it's still pretty quick though. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's
just needed to get like a perfect technique for it to happen, I guess. And
and
I can
then
still
I'll
I
keep
can
going.
still
I'm
do
sorry.
it like
So
usually
you
every
feel like
time.
you can just pull that off any session
Yeah.
usually? Yeah, that's good. It's kind of like, well, once you kind of reach a certain level, as long as you're staying somewhat kind of fresh and training, it's usually, I don't know, you know what I mean? Once you kind of achieve something, you're kind of like, oh, well, that's just where I'm at now, and then you're doing something bigger. Have you been trying to do anything else for facelifts bigger than that, or do you think that
Yeah.
might be about as big as it gets?
I have tried to like do a facelift clean with it.
How
I've
close was that?
I've been pretty close, but still not quite. And I also tried a few times with the 30 kilo Holly blob, which I just got.
Yeah.
That's a little bit. It's a little bit bigger or wider, and also a little bit heavier. So I think like on the scale, I was like 2.3 kilos away last time I checked on the scale.
Okay. Yeah. So that's, but you're still, I mean, you're basically talking about for the majority, and by majority, I pretty much mean almost everybody in the sport. You're still on the very like top end of these are like very high end like lifts. These are very heavy blobs. They're not just like, I don't know, like somebody's just beginning. It's not like, oh yeah, what's a good blob to start with? You're like, not facelifting Blobzilla or picking up a Hall 30, right? I mean, that's up there. So
Yeah,
you talked about Brian Shaw, basically, going for a facelift and that kind of getting you to do it. You competed in the Shaw Classic,
yeah.
correct? Did you do both years or just one?
Only the first year,
Oh, the first year.
2022.
Okay. And did you guys have a blob? You guys had a blob run in that where you were going
Yeah,
up the ladder? What
yeah.
was it like? What was that experience like? Because I mean, that was probably one of the bigger. as far as like audiences, a lot of times we're doing these feats or even at competitions, like if they're off to the side, there's not the biggest of audiences. You know, most of the time it's online, people see the videos and there's not really a crowd. So to actually, I guess, have blobs in an arena and then a crowd sort of there having to watch it. Um, what was that like kind of lifting blobs, I guess, in front of probably one of the biggest crowds that people have lifted blobs in front of, I guess, other than
I
maybe
guess so.
like maybe the medley for like Mighty Mitts back at the
Yeah.
Arnold, you know, back in the day that was a big crowd and they had blobs involved. But modern times, that's probably
Yeah.
one
I
of the
think
bigger
so.
venues. I don't know. You just give me your take on it since you were there doing it.
It was kind of it was insane for me. And I think that's the most fun I've ever had at a competition, like during the actual events.
Yeah. What do you
Uh,
think made it? What do you think made it the most fun? Just the atmosphere, all the people,
yeah,
or
like all the people and like you were coming out from the backstage with all the other people that did strongman and everything,
yeah,
and with all the yeah all the people was strong. They were like selected, so
yeah.
yeah.
That's a good group. I don't. I get the first and second year kind of mixed up of who was there. Um, did you win the blobs the first year,
No, I
or
was like, I got to the Blobzilla, I lifted the Blobzilla, and
did you like tie? Did you guys like tie for
yeah,
first?
I tied for kind of tied for first, but the time was separating
Oh,
us.
okay. I got you.
So
So yeah, they went by time too.
David won it, and then Jesse was number two.
Okay, but yeah, that's still, man, I mean, it's a big stage to kind of do that on, and then,
Yeah,
like I said, it's cool to have an implement that you've trained with or that you're pretty good at be an event, you
yeah,
know, as opposed to just like, oh, it's a loading pin and go see what you can lift. I think it's cool to have more of like a medley or something like that mixed in. But yeah, like I said, I wasn't there. I've seen some clips of it, but I always kind of wondered like what was it like, for those people who are kind of doing it and the atmosphere and everything. Because I know there's a lot of people there, even if they don't know what a blob is, they still got to sit there and watch it. So
yeah,
they're learning as it's going, or they're seeing you guys lift, and you have a lot of eyes on you, whether they know what it is or whether they have no clue what it is. It's still just a lot of eyes watching. So I think it's a cool thing.
yeah.
Um, and then you can kind of pick which way you want to go with this question. But as far as like the best blob lifts ever, what are some that you would list? It could be something that somebody else did. You could, I mean, most people don't like saying their own because they're like, man, I'll let other people talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything that you've seen other lifters do that I guess was impressive or you feel like are some of the best blob lifts that you've witnessed.
Well, some of the best, I have to say, the first time the 150 York was lifted by Brian Shaw
Mm-hmm.
in some kind of a hotel room.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was actually there when they delivered him, or he was supposed to meet us and get the blob, but his wife was there instead.
Okay.
Collect it, and then I guess I don't know if it was the same day or a couple of days later. Then Brian just lifted it in his hotel room.
I remember seeing that video. They kind of had it chalked
Yeah.
up a little bit, and
Yeah,
yeah, I
that
know
was
the video
good.
you're talking about.
Yeah, and then of course more recently I have to say Jaland, or I don't know how you pronounce his name.
Yeah, Jaland. Yep.
Yeah, Jaland. He he lifted both the 150 and the 140 at the same time.
Yeah, that's like a big combo lift.
Yeah, and also the 30 kilo Holly blob with added weight.
Yeah, and he cleaned it too. Yes, he had a Hall
Yeah,
30
yeah,
clean. Yeah.
yeah.
So those
So I
are
have to say that's the most impressive so far for like regular lifts on the blob. And like you said, I don't want to mention myself.
your own.
So, but for like the facelift, I guess, yeah, the Blobzilla facelift and some of the stuff that Tim Butler is doing.
Yeah, and I talked to Tim. I think when I spoke to Tim, I think he mentioned you for the facelifts. Like you two pop out to me as like probably the most notable people when it comes to facelifts,
Yeah.
regardless
There's
of what blob it is. But
yeah, not too many people are like at least posting facelifts. So yeah, I guess there is some people who could lift pretty impressive blobs too.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, I know Jaland hasn't really posted a lot. I know he's got a good hand. So I mean, I think that if he wanted to do facelifts, I think he could get up there and do some
Yeah.
decent ones. But yeah, people don't do them as much. I know a few people that kind of post them from time to time, but it's definitely not quite as I guess not quite as popular as the original, just kind of standard lift from the top. But I don't know. Maybe if people watch some of your videos or Tim's videos, maybe it'll inspire them to give it a shot and just see, because it is going to train your fingers and grip completely different than lifting it from the top, I guess. So, but yeah, any other big lifts to add that you can think of throughout grip history, I guess, or anything?
Yeah, there was also, I don't know if what his name is called Tiny something on Instagram.
Yeah, Ross. I think his last name's like Ross Boyle, I think, or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, he placed very well in this last King Kong. But yeah, he's I think he kind of, I don't know if he trains with the like Gods of Grip crew, or he's over there, but he competed from their venue. But yeah, he's very strong.
He also lifted the 30-kilo Holly Blob with both hands.
Yeah, that dude's strong all around. Like I think he's going to be somebody to keep an eye on for. I mean, we're talking about the subject of blob lifting, but blobs or anything competition wise, I feel like he's just pretty strong in general.
And also, of course, Jedd. He has lifted Blob Father.
Yeah, he's done some combos too, I think. It's tough though, because I mean he has so many videos, it's hard to keep track of what people have done sometimes. Like I don't know. Yeah, you do so many different lifts and combinations, sometimes you forget. But yeah, Jedd, I know he's lifted some big dumbbells with like Blobzilla, and he's done some good blob combos. But yeah, lifted Blob Father. I don't remember if he did a combo with another blob with that at one point or not, but yeah, that's kind of the reason I'm talking to, some of the people your name is like, that's who I'm talking to for this episode, because I don't know. Not that we all agree on every single aspect, but yeah, it's pretty much some of these lifters and lifts can't really be questioned, I guess. And I don't know if that kind of answers the same question here, but I was going to ask, like, who are some other blob lifters that you enjoy watching them train and lift? They don't necessarily have to be the strongest. They don't necessarily have to be the greatest of all time, but is there anybody that you see that is trains hard with blobs, or they're constantly putting up decent stuff, even if they're not the best? I don't know. Is there anybody that you, I don't know, get motivated by, or you think that they maybe get overlooked lifting blobs? Maybe there's somebody that's pretty good that.
Yeah, I wanted also to mention David Labby from the Show Classic medley.
Yeah.
He won it, and he was like, I don't think he has lifted a lot of blobs before, because he was like missing. He had to lift many of the blobs more than once because he like missed them sometimes, but he still got to win the event. And from a while back, like Lane Snook.
Yeah, no, Lane. Yeah, Lane has some really good ones.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember if I don't want to be wrong, because sometimes you go through these old videos, you might remember something different. But I know he did like a double Blobzilla lift or something similar. I just don't know if he did anything else with them. Like I don't remember if he like. I'm pretty sure he cleaned Blobzilla, but
I think so.
I'm going off memory there. But I've seen some of those older videos. But yeah, that's one that Lane is real. I mean, Lane's one of the best we've seen in grip on a lot of things. Really, I mean, he's up there, and I think a lot of people mostly know him from like the Millennium Dumbbell and like Rolling Thunder videos back in the day. And I think that his bench strength does get overlooked, because he's done some pretty crazy stuff with blobs, whether it's curling them, cleaning them, double lifts. That's a good pick. That I don't know if anybody else is going to mention him. They probably won't, but that's
maybe if they are new to this, then maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah,
and also like Luke Raymond, he has smaller hands, but he has still lifted the Blobzilla.
Yeah, no, Luke's a good pick for being underrated, and I might have said this. I don't want to. I'm probably backtracking and like saying the same thing several times through these videos, but Luke is very strong at blob curls,
Yeah.
like his wrist. He's very good in that position. You'll see some people that are very strong with blobs and can do a lot with them, but when it comes to the curl, they're like their max blob lift, and then what they can actually curl is like not even close. And if Luke can basically lift it, he can pretty much curl it for the most part.
Yeah.
Like his wrist is up there. I think this might have been about 2 years ago, but I think he was trying to curl with a red pill and his finger popped. He had kind of a temporary
Oh.
injury from it, but yeah, so I don't know how much he goes back to that or if he tries to still curl any blobs these days. I'd have to ask him, but I don't have to ask him how that injury healed up. But yeah, he popped one of his fingers or something
Yeah.
trying to curl a red pill.
Yeah. I think the best, the heaviest blob I curled was the 24 kilo Silarico blob. I tried the Blobzilla, but it's just too heavy.
Yeah. Have you, when you're curling blobs for you, do you feel like it's easier to lift them regularly, like from the top and curl them because you have your fingers on the side, as opposed to doing a face? Like, is a facelift curl? What's the difference between those two?
The facelift curl is a little bit heavier on the wrist, I guess, because the weight is kind of further away in a way.
Yeah, it's like higher up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't think I have curled 24 kilo Silarico blob with a facelift curl.
Okay. So yeah, so that would be a little bit of a difference, right? From what you could facelift to what you could curl, making
Of
that a
course,
little bit tougher.
I kind of like cheat curl it, but not like strict.
Yeah. And then from there,
I should mention like Jason Dingy has some pretty good blob lifts, and of course Ben Helms.
no, Ben, yeah, we're gonna just skip past Jason. He doesn't count. Nah, I'm messing around now. I just got to give Jason. I just have to give Jason some shit and just mess with him. But we're not talking about Jason Dingy. No, no, Jason's Jason's definitely strong on blobs as well. I mean, he's strong everywhere when it comes to grip. But yeah, he's another guy that could. I mean, for hand size and everything else, he can hold his own with about anybody on blobs. And then Ben pretty much, I think he pulled off some of the best lifts I've seen in person with blobs and different things like that. We actually did. This is kind of a side story, real quick, but we did a competition, me and Ben, one time. We took half 110 legacy, so about 53 pounds. But we basically were just like, okay, I'm gonna clean it, and then you're gonna clean it, and we're just gonna go back and forth till someone can't clean it. And it went on for like 30 minutes, and I think we both cleaned it like 66 times, and then when he did 67, I couldn't do it anymore. But you could change hands and everything, and we'd give each other like maybe 5 to 10 seconds. But like if you didn't, it's basically back and forth, back and forth. But that was a pretty crazy one. But yeah, Ben's pretty wild. I didn't think I was going to win that matchup, but I was like, well, let's just see how long we can go and do this. And yeah, I think we did 66 cleans, and then I think he did the final one, and I couldn't clean it anymore. But yeah, Ben's a monster when it comes to that.
That's impressive.
Yeah, but you could tell too. Like, okay, we both hit like 66 lifts, and then he did like one more. But you could see through like 15, 30, 50. It was way harder on me. Like I was almost killing myself every time trying to do it. And Ben was sort of like, okay, back to you. He was kind of cruising through it. I don't know that I really pushed him that hard, but yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of a funny story. But to Ben's credit, yeah, Ben's curling him, cleaning him. Yeah, he's up there.
And the last name I wrote down is Tanner Merkel.
Yeah, no, Tanner's. I mean,
not sure how much he does right now,
I don't know how much he trains them, right? But I know he lifted Blobzilla before, and I mean, who knows how many years ago that was? Probably more than 5 years ago. I bet. I mean, like I said, I don't know, but
I think so.
4 or 5 years ago or longer, lifting Blobzilla, and I mean, I feel like a couple of the competitions he did recently, he showed up pretty strong. I mean, about as
Yeah.
strong as he's been in the past, or a little bit stronger on some things. So I'd imagine if people put the right things in front of him, or if he really wanted to train with Blobs more, he could
Yeah.
probably um, he could probably shake some things up and be right there with any. I mean, any of the
Yeah.
top guys.
Yes.
Yeah. And then from there, I guess we covered kind of what you've done, maybe some people that you've seen you've given credit to. What are you kind of working towards? Do you have any goal that you're working for with Blobs right now that you're like, man, I gotta get after this feat, or anything you're specifically training, or is it kind of like, when that happens, it happens?
Um, it's kind of hard for me to like focus on only one thing, but I still want to do like a facelift clean with a Blobzilla, and well, lift Blob father
Yeah, and there's
like
not many
just
there's not many people that have
regularly.
done. I mean, I don't think anybody's done the first one you named. I think you'd
No,
be the first person to do a
yeah,
facelift Blobzilla and clean it. I think
yeah,
that'd be a first. Um,
I think so.
even for just deadlifting the Blob Father. I don't know that list of people is, I mean, maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah. I
Of
meant
them.
like regular lift on the
Yeah, yeah, but I
yeah,
think for Blob Father, like, isn't like lifting it regularly? I mean, I can only think of about 4 or 5 people that have ever picked one up. I mean,
yeah.
like, I know like Jedd, um,
Clean show,
yeah, Jaland.
Jalen,
There would be like maybe like Ross, or like Tom Limath. I know Tom from Gods of Grip. Tom
yeah.
did like
He's also getting quite strong.
so. But other than those guys, that'd be about the only people I know of that have done a half 140 or a Blob Father. So yeah, I mean, even that, it's like you're in very rare territory with some of
Yeah,
those people.
and
But
also I need to lift Holly 30 kilo, like facelift and regular.
okay, I want, so you haven't lifted the 30 kg yet at all?
No, it has like it fits kind of weird in my hand, so I think I have to train it for a little while.
Do you feel like the ridges kind of being square? Do you feel like it kind of like pushes up into your hand weird? Or is it
Um,
like,
if
or
I
is it,
like if I grab the blob like I usually do on the York blobs, it's like I kind of can't do that. I need to like pull my thumb a little bit more, or the edge of the blob further down on my thumb.
okay.
If not, like kind of my palm gets on the edge of the poly blob on the other side of it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but it has to be lifted some way or another.
Yeah, which of those do you think will happen first if you had to pick? Which one do you think is probably like closest in reach?
I think the easiest would be the facelift clean of the Blobzilla.
Okay. Yeah, and that's the one that nobody's done. And you're
Yeah,
thinking that might be the one you get to the soonest. So yeah, no, that'd be cool, man.
yeah,
Well, like I said, we at least have this documented now. So when you go ahead and pull that off at some point in
yeah.
time, maybe I'll circle back and, be like, oh yeah, man, he's talking about that here on the show. Boom. But uh, but yeah, is there anything else that you would like to add? Blob training tips, or just anything. I mean, it's totally up to you. I mean, if there's anything you want to kind of close with, or add in maybe something we skipped over, but I think that would cover a decent
Yeah.
amount of stuff. I mean,
I hope. Well, there has been a few contests with blobs, usually blob medleys.
yeah.
So I love that event, and I hope that's going to be more frequent.
Yeah, I think a few competitions now I've been seeing. Like I said, I don't know. I mean, some of this stuff kind of goes in. It'll come and go in waves. Some of the competitions more recently, it seems like, oh, there's an inch dumbbell farmer's walk. there's a blob. Man, it seems like some of the feet or odd objects are getting brought back into the sport a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a good thing. You know,
Yes.
I like those events. I think they're more exciting. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. I hope that kind of continues and we see more of it.
Yeah. And people needs to buy more blobs, I guess.
Yeah, right. If you're hosting competitions, you got to have a full set. No, I'm joking. I'd break the bank account there. The way people are trying to sell them these days, it's wild. I It'll be funny to hear Jedd talk about some of this because I know he's gonna. I mean, Jedd can remember when people were probably basically giving them away. Oh, these are nothing. You know what I mean? Because it's like it's just a broken dumbbell. Like who really cares? And then you fast forward a little bit, now people are like $500, and then shipping is like what? Like, well, I guess there's less of them. They're rare, and whatever. But I think people are getting crazy with the prices, man. It makes it hard for people to get a decent blob collection going these days because you buy 2 or 3 of them, and it's, I mean,
I don't think there is.
Up there.
Well, if the customs are getting more expensive, as it seems to be, probably, then
that could be a thing too.
It won't be possible to buy blobs from the US anymore, I think, for like people in Europe.
Yeah, we'll have to smuggle them. We'll have to smuggle them over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, no, I think that that mostly covers it. And like I said, if there's anything that you feel like we left out, man, you can say whatever. But yeah, for the most part, I just want to thank you for taking the time. You're one of the first people that I saw lifting blobs, and especially like you and Tim Butler when it comes to facelifting. And then to me, it's also cool when you get into a sport and there's certain guys that you recognize their name and you see them doing stuff. But with our sport, sometimes people will sort of, fall off. They stop competing. They start getting into other stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool to see everything you've been doing since I joined the sport because you were a name that was already established when I joined the sport. And then to see that you're still, competing at like the Shaw Classic or you're still out here traveling and doing these competitions is it's cool to see.
Yeah.
Because it sucks when you get like a big name person or somebody that's done really well and they kind of just fade off and you're like, man, what happened to that person? So
yeah, I think that's probably the most fun thing to do, to travel to these contests.
Okay, so I guess we talked about feats and blobs. This will be the last thing I'll ask.
Yeah.
Any competitions that you're looking at next?
Yeah, the main focus for me will be the Immortal contest in Sweden.
Okay, that one's gotten a lot of attention last couple of years. It's turned out to be pretty big.
It's like I think like 60 people have signed up so far. From I don't know.
You know what's crazy about that? I'd have to check that roster again, but I think Lane was on the roster, which would be interesting. Okay,
I asked him to join the contest, and he said he wanted to do it, and he signed up. So we will see if he shows up.
It's been a while since we've really seen him compete. So man, yeah, if you could drag him out of
I hope so.
I don't want to say retirement, but yeah, if you could kind of drag him out of that and so see what he can do on some of this stuff. It'd be interesting, it's tough with some people, getting a little older and stuff, but usually even if you're older, you still kind of carry a pretty good grip with you.
Yeah.
And I think that it'd be interesting to see what Lane thinks. I'd like to get him on the show at some point in time, but sometimes people are more open to talk or not, and he kind of has been away from the sport for a little bit. But yeah, who knows how hard he's been training or what he's been doing. But yeah, you have to give me some updates when you lift with him. If like I said, assuming he shows up, let me know. Have to let me know how he's doing and how that competition turns out, because that'd be somebody that I would like to lift with him someday if it was ever possible, or compete with him, even if it's not close and whatever. Because like I said, Lane's definitely way up there. But that's another big name that, granted, I mean, obviously much older than us, but he's done so many things in the sport, and then you kind of just disappear, and then I don't know how many years later it's like, oh man, seeing his name on a roster, I'm like, that's going to be interesting to see how some of these new people measure up and see if he's still got it. So well, man, hey, best of luck at Immortal Grip Wars, and I know they always do a good job filming it and everything. And how do you feel like your chances on the events are going to be? Do you like the events, or is it?
Yeah, I do like them. They swapped the 80 mil or the 80 millimeter Saxon bar for the 50 millimeter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not too great for me, but like the other events is pretty similar to 2 years ago, last time they had it. So, but I think the field is a little bit better this year.
Yeah, I remember, from what I remember, the roster looked like it's pretty stacked. I mean, everybody. I mean, most of the names you go down, and I'm like, man, I don't know. It's one of those where you always want to get everybody in the same room, all the best people. This will be one of those cases where a lot of the best people doing this stuff will be. So I think it'll be cool to see how you stack up with that. I'm sure you'll have several events that you'll do. I mean, you'll do good at probably most events, but I think there's a few that you'll probably be right there in the running for.
I hope
winning. So, hey, like I said, Thomas, appreciate you taking the time to do this and sitting down, just talking blobs. And wish you the best in your training and future competitions. And I'll give you the last word, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, well, I think we have been through most of what I could think of at least, and I have to thank you too for having me on the show. This is the first time I join a show like this, so
yeah. Well, then all them other people should have already interviewed you, but I'm glad that at least I don't know. I said got a chance to talk about some blobs and do some stuff here.
Yeah, so. I have been asked once before, but I so far I haven't been on any shows. So.
Would you just dodge them? You're like, not today.
Nah, I didn't dodge, but I don't like. I usually don't like to do this kind of stuff.
Okay, well then I'm real glad you at least took the time to do this for at least the Blob episode and everything. So, man. Thanks again. Like I said, if you need anything from the show or me, whatever, just reach out and let me know. But look forward to seeing that Blobzilla facelift clean, and then we'll see how you do at Immortal Grip Wars, man. So, thanks again.
I think we covered some pretty pertinent points that might help some people out, and I wish everyone well. And if I did anything that inspires someone to do better, I'm all for it.